And we're live. Yes, indeed. Hello, folks. If anybody's out there in YouTube land, we're on a wee bit early as usual. At just before 10 o'clock to make sure everything's working okay. I've got green for my sound machine, and it looks like somebody's actually there. So this is not our normal day, and we've been attempting to go at a certain time, I suppose, during the week. I suppose just to let people know, I'll probably mention this once we get cracking, is that we're just getting swamped with work. And for the last 3 episodes, I've been getting the work done pretty much within half an hour of the episode. And it's kind of getting a bit stressful. So I'm just trying, it's just a bit of a move about to try and get a day that I can actually manage this and try and be semi-regular for my audience, if at all. So it's always an apology from me, and that's all I can do is apologize. I'm afraid that I find it very difficult to get a regular program out, but I do my best. And the Thursday, I've been trying to go for Thursdays for a particular reason, and each Thursday that I've aimed for recently has ended up being a Friday, and it's not what I've been hoping for, really. And I know it excludes certain people from the audience. So I've decided to move back in the week. It gives me a bit of time over the weekend. And I'm also, because I've picked up a bunch of students recently, I'm about to lose a couple of them with an exam within a week or so, which will free up my Tuesdays, actually. So there's Chaya Rivka saying shalom. Hiya, Chaya. Good to see you. And there's 10 o'clock. And Lord Krog saying hello's long time no see. So, hi guys, and I was just about to tell everybody that I got a wee message from Chaya saying to say shalom to everybody, but there we go, she's doing it herself. Great to see you, Chaya, great to see you, Lord Kronk. It's 10 o'clock, folks. I'm going to say hello. I'm Doc Sloan. Welcome to my science fiction station, the Doghouse. Pardon me, here on YouTube. And there's Julian Thompson saying, hey-oh, and generally Tuesday or Thursday works for me. Excellent, Chaya. It's. I hope it does work for people. I've been losing a few people from the audience, but gaining subscribers, which is a bit of a strange thing. I just figured there's Matt S saying hi Matt, how you doing? I just figured this might be easier for people, and I was also considering, some, to be honest with you, some religious beliefs and stuff like this. I know there's 3 different Sabbaths, isn't there, within a week: Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. So I don't really want to exclude anybody from the audience, if you like. So I figured by doing it really at the start of the week that would maybe make it a bit more accessible, actually, to all sorts of people. And so we'll just say, I'm so sorry, but we're going to try and run with Tuesdays from now on with the book club, because I enjoy doing this. It's not that the work's a chore. It does take a lot of work sometimes, but I actually do enjoy it. But it's just trying to manage the time and with life in general, and I haven't been too well lately. So we're doing grand with the book club anyway, and apologies to everybody. I really am not trying to mess you around at all. And hopefully we'll go with Tuesdays from now on, and we'll do the same caveat that if YouTube shuts ourselves down or something like that we have technical problems, we'll always try the next day. And hopefully that will make it a bit more accessible, as I said, and just maybe a bit easier for me. Because I do, as I said, I do enjoy this, but it's taken about 3 days of my week at the minute. And one of the reasons why I was finding it hard to struggle was basically when I pick a bit of a struggle is when I pick up new students. So I try to fit all my students into certain days, but whenever I run out of slots, I have to open up another day for them, basically. And I've got some new students who are bringing plenty of work for me to do as well, actually. So I've got some new topics to teach, or actually a very old topic to teach. Something I haven't taught, and goodness knows, since 2006. But anyway, enough about that, folks. Just a wee bit of housekeeping in relation to Frank Herbert, Dune, science fiction, stuff like that. I thought I'd mention a few things just before we get going today. One of the things was in relation to a YouTube channel, which is the guys from Gom Jabbar, but their YouTube channel is actually called Lower Party Media. And just in relation to Dune fans, they have run about 2 or 3 videos on Frank Herbert's attitude to homosexuality. I personally consider it a bit of a hatchet job, but I just wanted to point out to you is that it's a thing that we've discussed here on the channel before, possibly in a much better light than the 2 of these guys did, with a bit more sense about it. But I just wanted to point it out to you, and maybe to tell you to go check it out. because I'd like to hear your opinions on the matter, if you see what I mean. Um, and it's one of those things that I think it's modern people judging someone in the past by their own attitudes from today. It's not a thing that I do, mainly because of the way I work. But I deal with all sorts of nasty people in the ancient world, and I don't judge them, if you see what I mean, in any shape or form, because you have to be able to put yourself into that world. I think. So it's just a wee thing about in relation to that. I think there's even a bit of kind of almost sinister music put over the actual quote. So it's to do with the response, the question asked by a student at UCLA back in 1985 about Herbert's attitudes towards his homosexual characters. And it is clearly a question that flustered Frank if you listen to the interview. So I just thought pointed out that interview, by the way. We put links to all of those audio tapes with all the interviews with Frank somewhere in the community page, and direct links to them, but they're easily got to these days, I think. So if anybody wants to check those interviews out, but have a look at the guys from Gom Jabbar's discussion, if you like, on Frank Herbert's views on homosexuality and why he was wrong to have those views. So that's one thing. I thought, just from in terms of Dune fans, I was trying to have a wee watch at who's the other? There's a couple of Dune channels I try to watch. It's illegal for me to watch live TV or any kind of live broadcast in the UK at the minute, just because of the way the BBC, who are almost like the Nazis these days, the way they operate. I don't actually watch live TV at all, because they'll come to your house for you, won't they? And you'll end up in court and pay lots of money, and they really are a parasite on British society. The others, sorry, just very quickly. So the channel I was talking about there was Nerd Cookies. That was it. Just having a wee bit of a chat about some of the hate that she's been getting from Zendaya fans and stuff in relation to her discussion on Chani's character. So there's some interesting discussions about, I think, within the Dune community, whether you agree with them or not. I think that they're worth hearing. The other thing I just want to say in relation to science fiction is, one of my favorite actors has passed away. Is a guy called no, it's Tony Todd, isn't it? I'm very bad with names. It is Tony Todd. I've got this up. I don't have his biography up on the page. What I've actually got is why I wanted to mention it. But I'm sure a lot of you, if you're science fiction fans, you know Tony Todd from playing Worf's brother in Star Trek: The Next Generation. And he's a very, very good actor. But the one for me, in terms of favorite episodes, I think I've talked about. I'm sure we all have favorite episodes of Star Trek. I know what one's my favorite in the original series. In The Next Generation, my favorite is Darmok, which is a great episode. But the one that I love the best from Deep Space Nine is The Visitor. And I was actually just having a wee nosy at it. It seems that it's actually quite a popular episode amongst fans, if you like. It says here, consistently ranks and polls as one of the most popular episodes of the entire series, often vying for first place within the pale moonlight and Trials and Tribulations, which was a good laugh. With one critic writing, the episode sums up everything that made Deep Space Nine so unforgettable. So that's it's a great sort of alternate reality kind of time travel almost thing. And Tony Todd played the elder Jake Sisko in it, and I just thought it was a powerhouse of a performance and a cracking episode. So it's just sad to see that he passed away. But a very, very impressive actor. And again, that's my favorite episode of The Next Generation. Sorry, not The Next Generation, of Deep Space Nine. So that he's one of those actors that played a couple of different parts in Star Trek. But it says the elder Jake Sisko, I thought in particular. If you haven't seen it, check it out. Great episode, powerhouse of a performance. So there we go. That's my little science fiction wanderings of the week and all the things that I'm at and stuff. We've got the Dune Encyclopedia to dig out today. We've got a couple of things in our chapter here which are going to be interesting. It's another dialogue-heavy chapter. This time we see, again, this is another chapter with grandchild and grandmother. I put up a wee title card, actually, but it was before I got the chapter done. If I was going to give this chapter a name, I'd call it The Unchild and the Unthinkable. But we get to see Leto and Jessica here. in an interview, if you like. We've already seen Ganima and Jessica. The twins have been separated themselves in how they interact with their grandmother, but we're going to get a very, very different interaction here with Leto and Jessica. Almost aggressive, almost dangerous, possibly almost fatal, which is a very strange thing to have between a grandmother and her grandson. Again, sort of just reiterating the idea of a lot of what goes on with the Atreides is the psychotic family novel, if you like. Julian Thomas, just quickly catch up your comments before I tear into the chapter. Julian Thomas says we can explore Herbert's homophobia honestly. It seems to be tied up with his experience in the Navy, question mark. I did not know that. Well, certainly he didn't last in the Navy very long, did he? And Chiruka says, we'll have to reread Emperor to refresh on Frank's comments on homosexuality. So far, it's only the Baron, but soon the fish speakers. Absolutely. I've been rewatching The Next Generation. The Inner Light is amazing, says Julian. God Emperors, where Frank discusses the interrelation of war and sex. Yeah, there's a lot of ideas, particularly in relation to the homosexual nature of the military. The military is the Navy, Julian. I'm being daft there, aren't I? And there's aspects of the thing that he sort of speaks of in that speech at UCLA is that the gays have opted to be something like a genetic dead end, I think, if I'm paraphrasing. And of course, it's more about, to me, it's more about what do people know at the time? What are and we use the word homophobia. And to me, a phobia is an irrational fear of something. It's as simple as that. If someone called me a homophobe, to me, that means I have an irrational fear of homosexuality and that I behave accordingly, if that makes sense, based on my fears. And I don't see it as homophobia at all. And of course, the other side of it, as we were saying there, Julian's pointing a few things, is Frank's relationship with his son, Bruce, who's a homosexual and a very, very much an active, I believe, campaigner for homosexual awareness and all this kind of thing. So it's a thing that we can explore honestly, as Julian points out, and that we can look in terms of issues in the day. And also, I think, to remember that some of the stuff that's in these books begins into the 60s, the 70s, and our end of these books is in the 80s. And that's a big shift in attitudes, a big shift in what's happened in the world. All sorts of things change. But as I would point out, if you're studying anybody, to me, honestly, a lot of the people that I study, we go much, much further back. But it's a kind of a disassociation, if you like, from your own temporal condition that you need to have when looking at certain individuals historically, if you wish to do it honestly, and if you wish to do it, and you'll hear this word from me all the time. I have a huge problem with bias, and so the whole point is, regardless of how you look at Frank Herbert's attitudes to homosexuality, leave yours behind while you're looking at it. Does that make sense? And that actually makes things a lot. Then you can bring them in afterwards, but you can look at things in a clear light, I think. But I just thought that what the guys from Gom Jabbar, and it's just my opinion, that's why I quite like if some of you's checked out the videos, are there I think they're almost describing themselves, well, I think they're Californian, but possibly saying that they're a bit woke, but that they think a certain way and that Frank is wrong to think that way back in 1985. And it's a time when attitudes to homosexuality are changing, isn't it? But Herbert's kind of almost running with a sort of pseudo-scientific thing. And of course, a lot of his ideas on homosexuality are wrong. It's as simple as that, particularly in terms of advancing the human race, all of this kind of stuff. There's been work done on this. That doesn't make him a homophobic. Does that make? That's the way I look at it. I look at him as being incorrect, but I don't see him as being a homophobe. But at the same time, there's a sort of a discussion to be had around his attitudes towards his son. And if we get there, and I'll just wrap this up, but if we get there towards the end of things, that Frank and his son sorted things out, and that his attitudes towards homosexuality did change, and so therefore, to me, there's something that is not static in time, and is something that evolves and grows and maybe matures. So that's my own personal opinion. But I don't know. There was a bit of music put over them. It seemed to be an attempt to make it a bit sinister, or to put an emotional emphasis on it, which is what you would do when you add music to a speech or a question like that. And that they edited that in and they put that on top of it. So I just wasn't too happy with it. It's my own opinion, but I'd love to hear your opinions on it. And it is a topic that we're going to hit quite hard when we get to God Emperor of Dune. You know, so as Julian says, God Emperors, where Frank discusses the interrelation of war and sex, and he gets the bioessentialist certainly. That's true. So there you go. It was just a wee bit of stuff that was out and about there. And I've been kind of wanting to do some work on Denis Villeneuve's film. Probably when I get a chance to do it, I dare say I will come under attack a fair bit by, by the likes of Zendaya's fans. Not that if not, I'm sure that they would know existence. I think, as Liam pointed out. But there we go, folks. So I will make myself a wee quick ciggy, have a sip of juice. It's been a week. Well, we've got a freezing fog here. And I'm going to say this one more time, by the way. Once again, sorry to everybody who's written me emails and things like that. I've got buried by them. They're all sitting. It's almost that I'm afraid to go near them. I'm going to get, whenever I get a day free, it's going to take a day. I'm going to hit them all. Julian, that includes yourself. I'll fire off a wee quick thank you, Chaya, to you. Xvid, if you're out there, I haven't responded to you in ages, etc. It's just not from anything except I haven't had a chance to get the time. I've just been so busy, so I do apologize. And if you're out there, you can always ask me here, I suppose. But it's just to say I genuinely will get back to you, folks, and I'm just a wee bit swamped for time at the minute. But I've got so much correspondence and things that it's going to take at least a whole day. It's just something, as much as I say, hey, send me an email. If anybody's got any questions, it's something that can come and bite you back on the ass a wee bit, you know. But there we go. Right, as I said, yeah, I would call this chapter The Unchild and the Unthinkable. And it's a back and forth little chapter, I think, and we get to start to see Leto's teeth here, I believe. And it's how he treats Jessica, etc. And we get a couple of things answered in this chapter, by the way, folks. One of them is the question I've been asking. I've been saying for quite a while, because of my memory, it's been since about 2010 since I read this book. I'm going one chapter at a time. I wasn't too sure whether I've been discussing this as we go along, whether Jessica is back within the Bene Gesserit or not. And I think we get a sense of that being properly answered here. I think we've been running with it for a wee bit, that probably definitely yes, but pretty much convinced of it at this point in this chapter. The other thing is we're going to get a little bit of a discussion. Woohoo! Sorry, it's my doggy's barking. I probably shouldn't woohoo in that direction. That's where the microphone is. Excuse me. Is we're going to get a little bit of discussion about the Atreides genealogy, if you like, and in particular, who's Jessica's mother, which is an interesting thing. And that's actually why we've got this out here today. So we'll have a wee bit of a natter about it and we'll see what you think about it. So here's our epigraph, folks. Let's get cracking. Noodles! Sorry, that's the dogs out the back barking there. And he saw a vision of armor. The armor was not his own skin. It was stronger than plasteel. Nothing penetrated his armor. Not knife or poison or sand, not the dust of the desert or its desiccating heat. In his right hand he carried the power to make the Coriolis storm, to shake the earth and erode it into nothing. His eyes were fixed upon the golden path, and in his left hand he carried the scepter of absolute mastery. And beyond the golden path, his eyes looked into eternity, which he knew to be the food of his soul and of his everlasting flesh. And this is from Hegel, my brother's dream, from the book of Ganima. And that's just showing you how this is getting to me a wee bit, but I meant to have a look up at that word. I suppose maybe I'll have a quick go at it now. It's a word I've missed. Let's just quickly have a wee look. Bear with me a second, folks. Haya is almost how you would pronounce that, isn't it? Let me see. Right, bear with me one wee tick, folks. Haya. Obsolete. What have we got? Meaning obsolete from Latin, from ancient Greek. Huia. Goddess of yes, Hygeia. I was thinking that that's the goddess of health, cleanliness, and sanitation is where we get to originally with that one. Not too sure. Hygeia, my brother's dream. If anybody, yeah, I'll have to have a wee look into that one. If anybody's got any ideas, I'd love to hear them. Chaya Rivka says, is anyone else getting ads during this live broadcast? The way it works, Chaya, is that it does run ads into the live broadcast. It's changed a bit on YouTube. I don't see them, but and I'm not quite sure how that works. In the sense that we're live, so whenever you get interrupted, are you missing something? Or but whenever what I get is ads coming up and something like that down below. But it's supposed to be moderate, to be honest with you, Chaya. So hopefully it's not ruining the program for you. But that's YouTube has taken over that. So I can either pick low, none, or moderate, or sorry, low, moderate, or ridiculous amount of ads, you know. But I think it's part of the YouTube thing now, to be honest with you. It's the only way I get income from this, to be honest with you. So, as much as I don't like it, because they're all making loads of money and I'm making nothing anyway, but that's not really why we're doing it. But I only get about, I earn about £120 a year from this. So it's £60 every 6 months, pretty much is what I get from YouTube. So once upon a time, I had a lot of people asking me to strip the ads off everything. And I actually listened to them, and then that was a bad idea. You know, seems to pick up where it leaves off, but behind live a bit. Thank you, Chai. I've been wondering about that. I was wondering, was it some kind of async? No, time is time, isn't it? It's a thing we're going to, you know, if you take X amount of seconds to watch an advert while I'm still talking, I don't know how it works. But occasionally, Chai, whenever I do my work here, I will watch each program back the next day. I'll only watch it once, generally to see if I've made a complete fool of myself or if I've made any mistakes. But at the same time, I occasionally miss little comments and stuff that people have said, and I haven't seen them. And I try to keep I run with the live chat down here and try to keep a wee thing over it. And there's occasionally someone said a wee comment, and I never saw that. But I get to see it on the rewatch, and it's a bit weird, which is why I kind of always say to anybody, if I have missed a comment or a question or anything, apologies, it's not intentional, and if that happens, just fire it out again and I should see it, you know. But you know, thank you for that. It's interesting. I've been wondering about that myself. But prior to this kind of thing, Chaya, because I was doing the book club as live broadcasts, and it stopped me from doing my videos, it meant for the bulk of the Dune book club, I made no money at all, because you couldn't have ads on live programs. Which is so YouTube do very rightly out of people, like. You know, Julian saying the early myth of Leto is far different from later. He's at once a prophet, king, and a spirit demon of the desert. Keep the ads, no worries. It's a small price to pay, I think. Is no problem. Just new for live shows. Yeah, it is. There's a few wee differences on YouTube, I think. There's Connor Quinn saying, "Yo, Donk and all, could Hegia be connected to Hegira? Was Paul's dream migration?" See, I was almost going with something like hagiography, but it's not the same word, isn't it? Which is a biography of the saint. Yeah, migration from Mecca to Medina in AD 622, marking the consolidation of the first Muslim community. Hegia. I've got that R in there. I don't know. There is an association with Paul Atreides with Muhammad, isn't there? My brother's dream from the Book of Gilgamesh. I'm not sure. I'm open to suggestions, Connor. Genuinely, I only had the chance there, but I forgot to look the word up, basically. So that's a wee mistake I made. I will go after it again, but I just quickly, and it brought up something like Hygeia, which doesn't really make any sense at all. The one thing I always do, I think we've noticed this as we read through these things, is that Frank's choice of words, and wherever he tends to get them from, tends to be very deliberate. That there is their meaning is important, I think, to the story. But the amount of words that we're picking apart here has been ridiculous. But I think it's almost like an entire hidden background within the story. That if we are kind of wordy, or if we're polyglots or multilingual or anything like that, there's a lot. The more languages you speak, I think, the more interesting this book would become. And certainly when we get the likes of Chai and stuff helping us out with Hebrew, we've got Greek, we've got, oh goodness, the amount of languages in these books has been ridiculous, and the number of different languages we've covered so far. And then sometimes things are just anagrams, or he's written them backwards, Interestingly enough, because we're going to look at I think what we'll have to call it is the alias that Gaius Helen Moham uses. And the last part of that name is an anagram of nurse. But I was looking at Candidia, and it made me think of Candidia, Candidia, and stuff like that. There we go. There's Hagion is logic in Hebrew. Hagion. Yeah. Interesting. They're both pretty close, aren't they? I'll tell you what, actually, I'll scribble this down. I've left a wee space here anyway. I'll put both of those down. That might help. I'll do a wee bit of a run on it later and see if we can figure it out. But thank you guys, both of you. Hagira, possibly. Was Paul's dream migration? I don't know. You've got me thinking anyway, the pair of you. Hagion is logic. That's a good one. I never knew that. Logic. I've been teaching one of my students the persuasive argument and the dialectic argument, because he's got to do a speech in school, and he just found out today, his dad actually reminded him to tell me that we didn't quite get all the way through it with him. But so teaching with the persuasive argument is logos, ethos, and pathos. It's how to put yourself, what the qualities of yourself that should be in your speech, if you like, or how you present yourself in your writing. But we got him to be, apparently he did very, very well. So we got basically teachers sprung the test or the speech thing on them early. So there you are. Hagira and Hagion. I like that. I love words. Absolutely love them. Doesn't matter where they're from. Words are fascinating to me. So we'll have a wee look into it. My brother's dream, though. This is the dream of the vision of armor. This is the second skin, isn't it? And it's indestructible in the right hand. Power of the storm, the Corioliston, to shake the earth and erode it into nothing. And in the left hand, the scepter of absolute mastery. It's been kind of reminded me. I've been seeing lots of things on YouTube which are hilarious, which are kind of armchair archaeologists looking at stuff from all over the world and coming up with the most ridiculous ideas for what is this thing here? That's a handbag. Oh no, that's a UFO. These kind of things. And there is a certain kind of pattern to certain depictions, if you like, regardless of culture. But these things are explained and they're kind of well known within those academic communities. But the whole the Sumerians and all this, and oh dear, it really does head back to sort of UFO craziness and stuff like that. So there we go. So our locus is going to be Jessica's quarters in Siege Tabar, and this is the morning of her second day on Arrakis. So again, not much time has passed really. We're at chapter 15, and this is Leto and his grandmother. And oh here, hang on. Chai, here we go. Chai is helping me out here. He saw the jihad as a migration of genes across the universe to ensure survival. That's Paul, is it? Or it is Paul, yes. Very good, thank you. Sometimes I'm trying to get my old brain to work. Yeah, migration of genes across the universe to ensure survival. Don't put all your eggs in one basket, this kind of thing. Very good. There's the connection with migration. Thank you very much to Connor and Shea. Yes, Paul. Yeah, thank you. Brilliant. Excellent. Yeah. Yeah. There's a few other words I can think of, but I don't want to sit and go looking up and grabbing dictionaries and stuff. I'll have a wee nosy at it for next time. Let's see. But yeah, so we've again those symbols of agency, the right hand and the left hand, if you like. Power in the right hand, if you like, and then the scepter is that symbol of absolute monarchy, as it puts you, absolute monarchy. And beyond the golden path, his eyes looked into eternity. And again, that's quite an important word within this, which he knew to be the food of his soul and of his everlasting flesh. And as I said, folks, I think there's a point where I'm keeping it for actually, but we're going to have I actually have to dig it out of a folder somewhere. But we're going to look at whenever we get there, we're going to dig out the Moapo of Leto Atreides, which is a paper by Marie Noelle Zinder, which examines the whole kind of idea of Leto's second skin. And well, there's God, it's been that long since I've read it. It's a great paper, actually. If anybody wants to go ahead and look at it online, you probably should be able to find it. But it's very, very interesting, and it kind of looks at the second skin of Leto Atreides in relation to the what's called, I suppose, the WAPO. This idea of goodness, is he a French psychoanalyst? His name is Didier Anzu, I believe. There he is. Yes, it is. He is a psychoanalyst. There you go. Didier Anzu. So the whole second skin thing. His dates are 1923 to 1999. A distinguished French psychoanalyst. Sorry, to 1923 to 1999 are his dates. I'm wondering, does it just say anything here? Freud's psychic envelopes. Yes, there we go. I'll very quickly just give you this from Wikipedia. Emerging from ideas of Holding and such writers as Marion Milner and Donald Winnicott, and then migrating into continental psychoanalysis, the idea of the skin container takes on a life of its own, shaping Didier Anzu's influential concept of the psychic envelope in the skin ego, or le Wapo. Didier Anzu, this is 1985, theorized on the skin ego, the first narcissistic envelope on which the feeling of well-being is based, suggesting, for example, that narcissistic personalities possess an unusually thick skin ego. In contrast, masochistic and borderline personalities show remarkably thin skin ego. Extends the concept to the broader notion of psychic envelope, exploring the example of the idea of the dream envelope. That is the name Didier Anzu gives to his visual dream film, The Fine Ephemeral Membrane, which he thinks of as replacing the tactile envelope of the ego's vulnerable skin. With his development of a related concept, the sound envelope, he articulated the body's ego's relation to psychic space in terms of breath. In terms of groups, Anzu also maintained that there's no group without a common skin, a containing envelope, which makes it possible for its members to experience the existence of a group self. Goes on to talk about criticism of that, etc. What is interesting about it, I suppose, is the date of publication there, which is post God Emperor, isn't it? But as I said, I'll have to have a wee look at that. But it's a development of other ideas, so we'll have to have a wee look at that paper whenever it comes. Whenever I was keeping it for whenever Leto gets the skin on, basically, you know. Leto tries the same, or he saw the jihad. Just backing up to run those things together. Chai said he saw the jihad as a migration of genes across the universe to ensure survival. Yes, Paul. Leto tries the same through time, Paul through space. And Chai says tries to ensure the survival of humanity and others. Great points. Right. That's all that. What's that? We're over. Goodness, we're half an hour in. I haven't read the first word of the page. Just got the epigram. Let's pile out, shall we? Keep the comments and questions coming, folks. It's great stuff. So here's Leto at the beginning. We're at Jessica's quarters, and this is their meeting. It'd be better for me never to become emperor, Leto said. Oh, I don't imply that I've made my father's mistake and peered into the future with a glass of spice. I'll refer to his father's mistakes. That's what he's talking about. I say this thing out of selfishness. My sister and I desperately need a time of freedom when we can learn how to live with what we are. He fell silent, staring questioningly at the Lady Jessica. He'd spoken his piece as he and Ganima had. He'd spoken his piece as he and Ganima had agreed. Now, what would be their grandmother's response? So Jessica studied her grandson in the low light of glow globes which illuminated her quarters in Siege Tabar. It was still early morning of her second day here, and she'd already had disturbing reports that the twins had spent a night of vigil outside the siege. What were they doing? She had not slept well, and she felt fatigue acids demanding that she come down from the hyper level which had sustained her through all the demanding necessities since that crucial performance at the spaceport. This was the siege of her nightmares. But outside, that was not the desert she remembered. And we've been getting these things. This is the only little bit that we'll get of it, the change to Arrakis. Where have all the flowers come from? And the air around her felt too damp. Still suit discipline was lax amongst the young. So it's a very little quick flowers on Arrakis. The air's damp, a lot of moisture, and nobody's wearing still suits. These are the differences. But to her, the siege of her nightmares. Jessica's never liked this planet, has she? And she has no real reason to like it, I think. So here's a response, and it's interesting because we're going to get a shift. She's going to call him a child here, but we're going to get a term of unchild from her later. What are you, child, that you need time to learn about yourself? She asked, and I actually thought this was a bit of a daft question. Don't we all need time to learn about ourselves, especially when we're young? Who are we and who are we becoming? I think it's a perfectly normal thing to say. There's obviously other circumstances here. That Leto and his sister desperately need a time of freedom when we can learn how to live with what we are. So what are you? Is what she's asking. And why that you need time to learn about yourself. And I'd kind of written, it's not a stupid question, but it's a kind of leading question, isn't it? But ultimately, I thought, don't we all need that kind of thing? So he shook his head gently, knowing it to be a bizarre gesture of adulthood on a child's body, reminding himself that he must keep this woman off balance. First, I am not a child. Oh, he touched his chest. This is a child's body. No doubt of that. But I am not a child. This would be a very strange thing to hear from a child, wouldn't it? She chewed her upper lip, Jessica chewed her upper lip, disregarding what this betrayed. Her Duke, so many years dead on this accursed planet, had laughed at her when she did this. And I've actually kind of went with Leto the second and Leto the first on my little marks in the chapter here. So we have a memory of Leto the first here. And it's quite an interesting one. So this biting of her lip, here is it. Your one unbridled response, he'd called that chewing of the lip. Sorry, your one unbridled response, he'd called that chewing of the lip. It tells us that tells me that you're disturbed, and I must kiss those lips to still their fluttering. So it's a nice little romantic memory, isn't it? That whenever she's on, it's a her one tell, is it, to Leto, that the one unbridled response, the one thing that come out is the chewing of that lip. It's her tell. Of course, the next word, it tells me, you're disturbed, and I must kiss those lips to still their fluttering. It's a nice romantic thing, and it's kind of a nice gentle memory of Leto. But that's kind of going to be the problem here. It's not going to be very nice. Now this grandson who bore the name of her Duke shocked her into heart-pounding stillness merely by smiling and saying, "You're disturbed. I see it by the fluttering of those lips," which is exactly what her husband would have said, coming from a 9-year-old child who's got the same name. It required the most profound discipline of her Bene Gesserit training to restore a semblance of calm. She managed. "Do you taunt me?" And Leto says, "Taunt you? Never. But I would make it clear to you how much we differ. Let me remind you of that siege orgy so long ago when the old Reverend Mother gave you her lives. She turned herself to you and gave you that long chain of sausages, each one a person. You have them yet? So you know something of what Ganima and I experienced." Sorry, that makes me laugh. Here we've got the first of Frank's very weird sausage metaphors. So this is the Reverend Mother Ramallo, is the old Reverend Mother we're talking about here. Whenever she died, the seat so long ago, and the old Reverend Mother gave you her lives, she turned herself to you and gave you that long chain of sausages, each one a person. There you go. There's my run of sausages. For those of you who probably know why this is funny, and I'll be keeping an eye out for this. I'll be keeping an eye out for the word sausage as we go. Is that I think later on we've got a really ridiculous sex scene. Not in this book. And it's sausages. A long chain of. I get the idea. Each sausage is a person. That's the. It's just. I'd love to know what you think. It's a very particular metaphor. I could come up with all sorts of things that are long and chains of things that are continuous. But I just think it's a very funny metaphor. And quite deliberate too. I think Frank's fond of sausages. Oddly enough, one of the nicknames for my dogs, I occasionally call Holly Big Sausage. I wonder is it Frank's influence on me, but and is this the infamous beef? Dear oh dear. It's a couple of books away, I'm afraid, at the minute. But I just thought this immediately reminded me of it. I don't have a copy of it. I'll maybe see if I can dig it out and read it to you. But it's there's awards. I was actually explaining this to a student today that there's awards given out for really bad sex writing, if you like, in novels. Can't remember the name of it, but it's always amused me. But there we go. That long chain of sausages. Of all the words and metaphors in the world that you could pick, if I was writing this very deep and complex science, sausages. If I'd thought of it, I would have thought I've got to think of something else. I can't have a represent the genetic memory of the human race. But there we go. Long chain of sausages, each one a person. You have them yet, so you know something of what Ganymede and I experience. So the other memory, if you like, of the Bene Gesserit, there's a level of understanding, I suppose, that a Bene Gesserit should have with these two kids. And Alia, as Jessica asked, testing him. Didn't you discuss this with Gani? I wish to discuss it with you. Very well. Alia denied what she was and became that which she most feared. The past within cannot be relegated to the unconscious. That is a dangerous course for any human. But for us who are preborn, it is worse than death, and that is all I will say about Alia. So we've had that discussion about Alia's real mistake. Ultimately, is excuse me. I'm going to mute this very quickly. I just need to blow my nose. How far we've come, eh? I remember way back in the day when I started doing this live thing, I would step outside of the room to blow my nose, not realizing I had a mute button. Is that the infamous beef? It might be, actually, Conrad. Again, it's my old memory, but the one thing I'm trying to remember, is it in Heretics or Chapter House? It's in one of the two. But it's always made me laugh, and it's just one of those things about Frank's writing that I think is a little bit, I don't know. Don't know what to think about it. No. I still think it's funny. So this is, we've had a wee discussion about Alia's problems. So she's denied, basically pretended that they don't exist. And that's the thing that will cause Abomination. That will cause them to rise up and want them to take over, if you like. So we've had a good natter about this in the previous chapter, I think. And so it's That's it. You can't ignore the past within. You've got to kind of deal with it. Pardon me, in that sense. And if we don't, it's worse than death. You'll be taken over, yeah, I suppose, which would be like a living death, wouldn't it? You have another personality walking around, controlling your body for the rest of your days while you're relegated to screaming in the back of your mind or something like that. It would probably be quite horrible. So you're not a child, Jessica said. I'm millions of years old. That requires adjustments which humans have never before been called upon to make. A little bit hyperbolic, isn't it? Jessica nodded, calmer now, much more cautious than she had been with Ganima. I think, and she should be here, I think. And where was Ganima? And why had Leto come here alone? Well, grandmother, he said, are we abominations or are we the hope of the Atreides? Jessica ignored the question. Where is your sister? She distracts Alia to keep us from being disturbed. It is necessary. But Gani would say nothing more to you than I've said. Didn't you observe that yesterday? What I observed yesterday is my affair. Why do you prattle about abomination? Now, things are reasonably civil up to this point. What I observed yesterday is my own affair. Mind your own business, is what she just said there. Why do you prattle? Prattle is an insult. Prattle, why are you talking nonsense about abomination? Why you prattle? So her language is condescending, defensive, and not open, which is kind of the opposite of how things were going with Ganima. I think she's less cautious here. Miles tag Connor. No, it's Connor. It's Leto's trivializing the Bene Gesserit already. Yeah, no, it's a sec. I think it's the sex scene between Duncan and Idaho. It's one of those sexual imprinting scenes. I think it's been so long since I read it. Connor, I'm looking forward to getting to. It's just a wee thing. It's something that people have often commented about Frank's writing, and it's just a wee whimsical thing. I think it's funny. And of all the complex language in the book, if you see what I mean, the sausages, kind of sausages. If anybody knows the old That's Life thing with the dogs saying sausages, beef swelling. Oh, got you, the beef swelling. I think it might be the same bit. Yes. Duncan and Marbella, I think. Chiasin. Yes, I think it was Duncan and Marbella. Yeah. It's the whole. Yeah, I'm looking forward to that. Actually, there's some bizarre ideas in there. I was saying I had to really watch myself doing the PhD. Ultimately, my chapter on sex and gender gone. Bye bye. But that would have been fun because I got told when trying to translate a Greek word that I couldn't put the word shit into a PhD. So I wonder how they would have dealt with penile pulsing and vaginal pulsing and all this kind of stuff. If anybody's seen my PhD, by the way, you'll see that there's a giant cock in it, which I snuck in because they wouldn't let me put the word shit in my PhD, and I thought that was stupid. You're being ignorant about words. But the giant cock is actually the H.R. Giger Sandworm painting. But it's in my PhD, and I got that, and they had no problem with it. So. But I could have picked one of any other, any of a number of pictures to use there. Apologies, it shows you I can be a bit puerile sometimes, doesn't it? So prattle, here's the response. Prattle? Don't give me your Bene Gesserit cant, grandmother. I'll feed back to you, word for word, right out of your own memories. I want more than the fluttering of your lips. And that's I've written the next touche. That's and again that the fluttering of your lips. This is a kind of it's a romantic sexual thing almost to a degree that Jessica would have had with her own Duke, Leto the First. But this stuff's coming from her grandson, and it must be quite disturbing. And there's more than a couple of dodgy suggestions in relation to incest within this chapter. We'll have a wee look at them when we get there. Jessica shook her head, feeling the coldness of this person who carried her blood. And there's a ... between this person. Still a person, maybe in her own mind. The resources at his disposal daunted her. She tried to match his tone, asked, "What do you know of my intentions?" So she's trying to be, he's cold. Um, from her point of view, what do you know of my intentions? He sniffed. That's a disdainful reaction, isn't it? To sniff at someone like it's just. I think it's strange. I think it's funny. Possibly quite right for Leto's character here. I think just that sniff. It's an odd little thing that he sniffed, but it's almost like that kind of sneer, if you like. So it's a bit back and forth, this, isn't it? It's a bit like a fencing match. They're almost adversarial here. So here's his response. He sniffed. "You needn't inquire whether I've made the mistake my father made. I've not looked outside our garden of time, at least not by seeking it out. Leave absolute knowledge of the future to those moments of deja vu which any human may experience." I understood deja vu was a misfiring of neurons in the brain. I might be wrong. Read that a long time ago, I think. I know the trap of prescience. My father's life tells me what I need to know about it. No, grandmother, to know the future absolutely is to be trapped into that future absolutely. It collapsed time. It collapsed time. Present becomes the future. I require more freedom than that. So again, the emphasis on Paul's mistake, his father's mistake. What is it? It's by seeking the future with the prescience with the drug, basically. I'm not going to make that mistake. We get a sense that whatever little bit of prescience that we get through from Leto is dreams at the minute, doesn't it? It's like Paul's prescient dreams. Hence we begin the chapter with a discussion of a vision, if you like. But it's from my brother's dream. Citations, one. What's that? Sorry, context, please, Connor. Not too sure what you mean. Oh dear, oh dear. Oh, the million lives within him, possibly. For your PhD? Oh God, no. I had 200,000 words pretty much done, close to it, I think. So the end product is about 113,000. I think I was on. They told me I was only allowed 100. Though in my first year, this is anybody's doing a PhD. If you get it, if you have a discussion with your Viva or with your tutors, get it in writing. Do not believe them; they'll lie when it comes to your Viva. But they told me I could have my 200,000 words based on my first year Viva because I handed in 20,000 as an introduction. Most people put in 5, and then it came to when I actually had the work done. They went, "We're not taking that." There you go. That's the state of academia today. Oh, the dick picture. God, if you put the dick picture there, it's a. Well, I had fun with it, I suppose. In the end, a little bit of a Meringue, but yeah, it's an HR Giger picture of it. I think it's called Sandworm 4, actually, if I'm not mistaken. It's a pretty famous one, I think, of the Dune ones. Let me see. HR Giger. I think it's Sandworm, as in 4, as in Roman numerals. Let me have a look. That's it. Yeah. I'll just put that in. HR Giger Sandworm IV, and you'll see it. And it's a sandworm, but what it's eating is a big cock, basically. So that was one of the. I've got about 20 images, I think, in the PhD. And I picked a few to depict sandworms, but that's the one I went for, and they didn't notice. But it was an up yours, basically. That's why I did it. It's nothing major, just a bit of fun. But yeah, sorry, I thought you were talking about I had to dump so much, which was ridiculous actually. But then that's the stuff that other people have gone on to do. Actually, some of it and probably better. You can't seriously discuss Frank if you ignore sex and sexual politics. I agree. Because my PhD was the major themes, but there's quite a few, and as I've always pointed out, and Frank has pointed out, it's like a tapestry that they're intertwined, and if you unravel one, it causes a bit of a mess. But I went with in order of importance, if you like. But because I treated evolution differently, separately, as because it was the dominant theme, that meant I had to look at sex and gender separately, and it would have been my. I think that if you'll see it at the recommendations in my PhD, that there was two more whole chapters, and they were big. One was sex and gender, and the other one was, I think, religion and pretty much politics. I think, but we were looking at those. There was more to do, but again, you can't do it all, can you? But I just kind of wanted to do what I'd set out to do, and they didn't let me. But we get to discuss things. That's the thing, how that this is almost an extension of that kind of work, and we get to discuss things like that. So it doesn't really bother me. Just glad I got the damn thing in the end. Sometimes I'm not, actually. Some PhDs are career suicide. You're better off not doing them, if you see what I mean. It depends on what you're into. What your subjects are. No, where are we? So Alia's denied what she was. She refused to admit it. And she became that which she most feared. She's become the abomination by denying the past within. So it can't be relegated to the unconscious. This is a dangerous course for any human, but for us who are preborn, so any human, that would include Bene Gesserit. It's not just the preborn he's talking about here. It's worse than death, and that is all I'll say about Alia. So whatever's happened to Alia, it's worse than death, and we're going to get a discussion of what we should do about her later, and possible suggestion of execution, this kind of thing. So you're not a child, Jessica said. I'm millions of years old. Oh, sorry, I've jumped back a wee bit here. Let's see. Sorry, let me just catch up where prattle. I've jumped a wee bit back. Let's see. Deja vu. I require more freedom than that. Where did we get to? How do you know? Yeah, he sniffed. Sorry. So you needn't inquire whether I've made the mistake my father made. I'm not looked outside our garden of time, at least not by seeking it out. So he has peeked, I think, but he hasn't sought it out. Leave absolute knowledge to the future, to those moments of deja vu with any human may experience. Prescience would drive you mad. And again, it's that whole, the trap of prescience. My father's life tells me what I need to know about it, so he can learn everything he needs to know about it from the memories of his father. He doesn't have to experience it. Know the future is to be trapped into that future, absolutely. It collapsed time, present becomes the future. I require more freedom. And again, if we remember the Arrowonians, sorry, the pre-Arrowonians in Arrow 1, who are born prescient, they're all gone within 6 months. The suggestion, though it's not overt, is that they all killed themselves because they couldn't live with it. And we also have that with the first Kwisatz Haderach, the Tleilaxu one, who committed suicide. So Jessica felt her tongue twitch with unspoken words. How could she respond to him with something he didn't already know? This was monstrous. And her thoughts here, he's mine. He's my beloved Leto. This thought shocked her. Momentarily, she wondered if the childish mask might not lapse into those dear features and resurrect. No! That's a dodgy thought, isn't it? I wonder, he's my Leto the first. And the possibility, we talk about abomination, people being able to take over. He's mine. He's my beloved Leto. No. You know, there's almost the suggestion here that I could have him back in my grandson. I could have my lover back, and that's a bit messed up, isn't it? No, it's quite horrific, to be honest with you. Leto, and we'll talk about this possible suggestion here within it, but there's a suggestion within this that Jessica's really conditioned quite badly by the Bene Gesserit. I'm not too sure how much is a degree, but we can have a wee look at it when we get there. Leto lowered his head, looked upward to study her. Yes, she could be maneuvered after all. I can manipulate this one. He said, when you think of prescience, which I hope is rarely, you're probably no different from any other. Most people imagine how nice it would be to know tomorrow's quotation on the price of whale fare, or whether a Harkonnen will once more govern their homeworld of Gidi Prime. But of course, We know the Harkonnen without prescience, don't we, grandmother? And we've got some. This is a good bit of fencing here, I think. Um, there's Joseph Smith, June fan saying, "Hey, oh, hi Joseph, thanks very much for joining us. How are you doing?" Julian Thompson, classic monologue on prescience. Well, here it comes, Julian. Oh, sorry. That's yeah. You would do your nodding, wouldn't it? She refused to rise to his baiting. Of course, he would know about the cursed Harkonnen blood in his ancestry. He's poking her. Who is Harkonnen? He asked, goading. Who is Beast Raban? Any one of us, eh? But I digress. I speak the popular myth of prescience. Here it comes. To know the future, absolutely. All of it. What fortunes could be made and lost on such absolute knowledge? The rabble believe this. They believe that if a little bit is good, more must be better. How excellent. And if you handed one of them the complete scenario of his life, the unvarying dialogue up to his moment of death, what a hellish gift that would be. What utter boredom. Every living instant, he'd be replaying what he knew absolutely. No deviation. He could anticipate every response, every utterance over and over and over and over and over. And she cuts him up. Leto shook. Oh, sorry, doesn't. That's a different thing. Leto shook his head. Ignorance has its advantage. I thought he was cut off there. It's not. He cuts himself off. Ignorance has its advantages. A universe of surprises is what I pray for. And of course, I think that the truth within Leto maybe possible is that he knows he's not going to get it. And if we jump back to, I'm not a child, I'm millions of years old, this kind of thing. But how we begin this, that my sister and I desperately need a time of freedom when we can learn how to live with what we are. I think before he, ultimately becomes what he's going to become. There's just saying, well enough, thank you. Good to see you, Joseph. Yes, and it is as Julian was saying, classic monologue on prescience. It would drive you mad. If you knew what was coming. Sometimes we do know what things that are coming. I do my best to avoid them, to be honest with you. If I don't want to go there and do this at this certain time, this kind of thing. But to know absolutely everything would drive you mad with boredom. Nothing would surprise you. There'd be no joy in your life, and it's the little things in life that, to me, I think that are important. The little surprises. Sometimes they're big, nasty ones, and they're not great. But life's full of little joys. And if you saw every single, why would you experience it? Why would you even bother? If it's. I tend to go with the idea that the Arionians, that you do yourself in to get peace. If you see what I mean. As Julian was saying, the classic monologue on presence, it's a great monologue. What he's actually saying about what the average person would think of, if you only you could see the future, what would you do? This kind of thing. And it's a well explored thing, isn't it? We've got films like Back to the Future, all sorts of time travel stuff and things like that. But to actually, I wrote a wee story about kind of prescience myself, actually, a long, long time ago, as a kind of response to Frank's, but I thought I was a bit of a crap writer back then, and it's something I maybe have another go at sometime. But ignorance has its advantages. Ignorance is bliss, as they say. I'm a person that knows a lot of things that I shouldn't know. I got to the point at a certain time in life where the more you know isn't necessarily a good thing. But I'm a person that would hoard information, and I kind of want to know everything, to be honest with you, and I don't, and I'm not going to. And as I like to point out, what I don't know would fill an entire universe, and it's one of those things that you have to. It's a good thing to accept that you can't know everything. That you're not Mr. Know-it-all. You're never going to. What's the universal? You're not going to figure it out. I tend to look at life as an unwinnable game, so it's how you play it, not that kind of thing. But I love surprises and little things, the little surprises in life that just give you joy. I think are great. They're worth more than £1 million or anything like that. It was a long speech, we're told. This is Jessica's point. And as she listened, Jessica marveled at how his mannerisms, his intentions, echoed his father, Paul, her lost son, even the ideas. These were things Paul might have said. The son is an extension of the father in a way. Jessica said, "You remind me of your father," she said. "Is that hurtful to you?" "In a way, but it is reassuring to know he lives on in you." I don't think it would reassure me at all to know that all my dead, my dead parents were in somebody else's head and that they weren't actually at peace and rest, that they were living in this person's mind. I think that would freak me out quite badly. um, it's reassuring to know he lives on in you. How little you understand of how he lives in me. And Jessica found his tone flat but dripping bitterness. She lifted her chin to look directly at him. "Oh, how your Duke," this is what he says. "Oh, or how, sorry, just prior to that, we think, how little you understand of how he lives in me." And this continuation then, "or how your Duke lives in me," Leto said. Hang on, let me just check if I read that right. How he lives in me, or how your Duke lives in me. That's number 22. Bear with me a second. Have I made a wee mistake? How little you understand of how he lives on in me. Jessica finished too. Or how your Duke lives in me. That's a bit weird, isn't it? It's almost a repetitive statement, isn't it? I didn't make a mistake there. Just doesn't. It's just a little bit odd. I thought that the writing's not tip top there. Let's see. How little you understand of how he lives in me, or how your Duke lives in me. Who's the Duke? There. Because how little you understand of how he lives in me is a reference to Leto the First. Technically, if Paul's not dead, he's still the Duke of Arrakis and he's still the Emperor, isn't he? Or how your Duke lives in me. I think that's Leto that he was talking about. In fact, I'm pretty sure, but it's just, it doesn't really seem to flow right, does it? Grandmother, Ganima is you. She's you to such an extent that your life holds not a single secret from her up to the instant you bore our father. And me? What a catalogue of fleshy recordings am I? There are moments when it is too much to bear. You come here to judge us. You come here to judge Alia. Better that we judge you. Judgment, on Jessica, who we could say arguably everything's her fault for having a boy. Paul first, then Leto. Oh, sorry. Here, I've jumped way. Hang on, I'll go back. Sorry, folks. Connor Quinn saying Kurt Goodell talked about knowing the future somewhere. If you knew your future, you would not be surprised. Yeah. If you knew your future, you'd almost be tempted to put it to the test, wouldn't you? Or to see, I want to kind of avoid it, that kind of thing. Just I'd be curious. Julian saying, "I've just read Slaughterhouse 5, rings with the same postmodern view of time and death, so it goes." I love that book, Julian. Kurt Vonnegut's Slaughterhouse 5. If anybody's not read it, check it out. It's not a long read. I recently picked up that there was, I didn't really know that recently got well, not that long ago actually, it's maybe a wee while ago, but I picked up a copy of the film, Julian, and I have yet to watch it. Oh, I've got to get a DVD player up here. Slaughterhouse 5 is kind of Kurt Vonnegut's memoir of the bombing of Dresden and it's like a science fiction novel. It's a very, very important book, in particular for what happened in Dresden and the American and British, how would we put it, bullshit about it. But for anybody who doesn't know what happened, by the way, it's all explained in the book. Kurt Vonnegut was captured during World War II. Dresden, Dresden was destroyed as a revenge bombing for the bombing of Coventry. And at the bombing of Coventry, there's the phrase "you've been sent to Coventry." If anybody outside of the UK doesn't know what this means, it means you've been sent to your death. Pretty much. Was that at this point the British had cracked the Enigma code and the Germans' code, and so they knew that the Germans were going to bomb Coventry. And to maintain, it was too early to, if they evacuated the city, told people not to go, etc., spies would have picked up on it, and it would have meant the Germans had figured out that the Allies had broke the code. Um, so anybody who was going to Coventry that day was just let go. If you see you've been sent to Coventry, it means you're going to die, and we're not going to prevent it. It's to keep a secret, if you like. So Slaughterhouse 5 is kind of about the bombing of Dresden, conducted by the British and the Americans, but it was a revenge bombing for that. And unfortunately, what the Allies didn't know, as you'll get why it was Kurt Vonnegut in Dresden, is that the Nazis moved a lot of the American and British prisoners of war into it a couple of days before the Allies bombed the shit out of it. But if you can look at the pictures of Dresden on Wikipedia, you see nothing left. People being sucked into buildings by fire. It was firebombed. The suggestion that Vonnegut made, by the way, in Slaughterhouse 5 is that more people died in Dresden than both nuclear weapons, than Hiroshima and Nagasaki. He's often been a person who sort of discussed it publicly. He's the voice of I was there, and I saw it, and I survived it. And the establishment discussion on it, even till today, is that they like to pretend hard not many people were killed and all of this kind of stuff, and they don't like to admit that that was a lot of their own people that they killed. So being sent to Coventry, ending up in Dresden, etc. But it's a great book, and what it does with sorry, Julian's mentioned it. I just wanted to quickly talk about is that the author as the main character gets dislocated out of time. So it kind of there's three times, isn't it, within Julian, if I'm not mistaken. That there's the World War II in Dresden, heading towards Dresden, and then jumping forward to the time where he's in hospital recovering from a kind of, I think it's a bit of a breakdown, and there's an air marshal, if I remember correctly, in for a minor operation, the bed next to him, talking about how he bombed Dresden. It kind of set Vonnegut off. And then the third part of it is moving into the future, I think, where he's kind of like in an alien prison, if I remember correctly, with a movie star. I might be mixing up another book, actually. But that it's a great book. I think it's a really important novel. And it's a fantastic book that shows you some of the things that science fiction really can do, if you see what I mean, that we might not expect. Chaya Rivka says, intonations, not in. Have we got a misword there? Let's see. Or is that just a comment, Chaya? Sorry. I'm wondering, did I read out or did I read a mistake out there? Or is it Paul first then Leto? First time is Chaya's finally caught up. First time is about Paul. Jessica started with "You remind me of your father." Is that her in a way? Yes. Yes, it is. Sorry. You're quite right. Yeah, I missed that. Thank you very much. How little you understand of how it is, or how your joke. Thank you, Chad. Just slipped by me there. So it goes. But there you go. Anybody wants to check out Slaughterhouse 5? Fantastic book. There's some great stuff with Kurt Vonnegut on YouTube, talking about stories and stuff. Little talks that they give. He's a fascinating man. He's one of those people that the first time I saw Kurt Vonnegut come out, I thought, what's going on here? Who's this? What am I looking at? Does that make sense? This don't judge a book by its cover is Kurt Vonnegut. He's a smart man, real smart man. I haven't read too much by him actually, but I was very impressed by Slaughterhouse 5. There we go. Right. Sorry, folks. We do sci-fi references will set me off. I do apologize. But yes, indeed, the first one. Thank you, guys. The first one is Paul. How little you understand of how he lives in me. That's Paul. The second one is "Or How Your Duke Lives in Me." I missed that wee bit. Just thought you remind me of your father. And then we get the Ganima is you. So basically, we know you. And there's nothing really you can hide from it. You're here to judge us. You're here to judge us. I think we should judge you. And I suppose there's a wee bit more to that, but we'll get to it. Jessica demanded answer of herself Where are we? Number 24. Yeah. Excuse me. And found none. What was he doing? Why this emphasis on his difference? Did he court rejection? Had he reached Alia's condition? Abomination. Excuse me, sorry, folks. Throat's gone a bit tickly. Some of the precious fluids. Pardon me. Goodness gracious. Oh dear. Right. So, wonder, has he reached Alia's condition? Is he an abomination? Barely we judge you, as what he said. He follows on with, this disturbs you, he said. It disturbs me, she permitted herself a futile shrug. Excuse me. Yes, it disturbs me, and for reasons you know full well. I'm sure you reviewed my Bene Gesserit training. Galima admits it. I know Alia did. You know the consequences of your difference. Excuse me. So he peered upwards at her with disturbing intensity. Almost, we did not take this tack with you, he said, and there was a sense of her own fatigue in his voice. We know the fluttering of your lips as your lover knows them. Any bedchamber endearment your Duke whispered is ours to recall at will. Pardon me. You've accepted this intellectually, no doubt. But I warn you that intellectual acceptance is not enough. If any of us become abominable, it could be you within us. Who creates it? You. Or my father, or mother, your Duke. Any one of you could possess us, and the condition would be the same. Excuse me. And it's an interesting thing, isn't it? This could be you that does this to us, but at the same time, it's not her, is it? Um, she found the pain less than she'd imagined. It would be forced. Right, hang on. She found the pain less than she imagined it would be. Forced herself to continue. What do you want of me? Now, that's a direct question, which is about time I figured from her. I would teach my grandmother. Teach me what? Last night, Gally and I played the mother-father roles almost to our destruction, but we learned much. There are things one can know, given an awareness of condition. Actions can be predicted. Alia, now, it's well nigh certainty that she's plotting to abduct you. So, this is Alia's kidnapping plot of Jessica, I suppose. I'm going to teach you, I'm going to educate you, you're going to get kidnapped. He's going to open her eyes as well, I think. Jessica blinked, shocked by the swift accusation. She knew this trick well, had employed it many times. Set a person up along one line of reasoning, then introduce the shocker from another line. She recovered with a sharp intake of breath. Excuse me. I know what Ali has been doing, what she is, but right, folks, I'm going to stop for a wee second because my throat has gotten beyond a joke, and I'm going to go and give myself a good and see if it'll help a wee second and drink something that's not fizzy. Excuse me a wee second, I'm coughing too much. I'm finding it hard to read. I'll be right back. Sorry about that, folks. I was headed off to look for an antiseptic throat spray and realised I've run out, but I had a good cough down there. Still not very well, I'm afraid. Getting better though, but all this talking. Right, let's see, where are we? Microphone's back on. Just catch up with your comments there very quickly. Children and Jessica marveled at how his mannerisms, his intonations echoed his father. You read intentions. Right. Let me just check that. Thank you. Marveled at how his mannerisms. Bear with me a second. Was that my mistake or is it one in the book? Where we go? Let's find it. Bear with me a second. Echoed his father. He made me your father. His mannerisms, his intonations. I read intentions, did I? Oh, sorry. Right, got it. I found it. 21. Well, how mannerisms, his intonations. I've got intonations as well. That's just me fluffing, I'm afraid. But it was intonations, not intentions. Yeah, occasionally that happens. I stumble over things and stuff. Warts and all here. Thank you very much. Yeah, no, that was just me misreading. I have the same thing in my text, but it's always worth checking with these books, isn't it? Julian saying other memories treated in Dune more like a bank than a simultaneous living experience in multiple times and places. For Leto, it seems to become the latter. I go back and forth on that. That's an interesting way of putting it. I always got the sense that you couldn't just have all of these memories to absorb what, as he says, I'm a million years old, a million years worth of memories, that it would have to be in some kind of way selective, wouldn't it? Like a bank, yeah, that you could withdraw, pick a memory, withdraw it, put it back, that kind of thing. Maybe is that what you mean? Yeah, for many in the sisterhood, it's more of a banker. Well, that's how Odrad treats it. Odradi. China saying, is this simultaneous living experience what the Baron is doing to Alia? How does Leto do it? Julian Thompson saying, Leto is lost in it often. I'm a chip of shattered flint enclosed in a box. He returns like a stranger and relearns his name. Very good, guys. Thank you. Is the simultaneous China's question, living experience, what the Baron is doing to Alia, or how does Leto do it? I'm not too sure. I get the sense, well, with the Baron, it's yeah, I want a bit of your time, and so I get the sense that he's taking over. We haven't really sort of seen that in action yet. And again, I haven't had the time to read forward, I'm afraid, guys. How does Leto do it? Again, it's a wee thing, Chai, that I'm going to have to look into, because in choosing, it's my sense is that Leto is going to admit to being an abomination at the end of the book, isn't he? He lies. He is an abomination. So I got the sense that he has the one personality that Leto has is harem. The thing that I'm kind of curious about is that I wouldn't have put harem as Cheops as far as I'm concerned, which is Khufu. It's in my PhD, and it looks like I've lost the research for it, and I've a hell of a time trying to find it. But I've lost the reference where I got that harem Cheops, and I'm going to have to do a bit of who is harem, and that's I didn't just pull a name out of the hat. But I've lost where my source was for that, and that was the thing that's been bugging me. I was saying I have to look into that, because as far as I know, I'm the only person that's presented that harem is Cheops, the builder of the Great Pyramid, Khufu, But I'm concerned about that. That's a little bit oh dear, and I think it's just something that I had to chuck, because there's a what was it, like the little what do they call it? Is it like the Horus name or something? Is that it? I actually had that image of Harem's name, and I can't find it. But I've got a couple of folders with some stuff still in it, so I'll see if it's maybe in there. But it was that one personality within him dominates the others. I think again we'll have to get there. But that's how Leto does it. I think it's picking one personality. Whereas I get the sense with Alia that the Baron's just come forward, and it's not that he's keeping everybody else, though, but he's actually been able to take over her body with but as I said, I'm not too sure forward to getting there. The simultaneous living experience. Again, that's what I think, but allows him to do what he wants to do, I think. The box. He learns his name. Interesting point. Nathan Granville says, "Hey Doc, just want to say hi. Gotta leave cause of spoilers." No worries, Nathan. We're going a chapter at a time. I'm assuming some people read along, other. I suppose some people are reading along as we go. And I'm finding it quite hard to spoil things as I go ahead, actually, because I can't remember that much from these books. But not a problem. And I hope you enjoy the show as you catch up with the books. But that's great. Don't worry, don't want to spoil the books for anybody. If you've not read them, read them and then come and check this out, guys. They're so dense, but thank you very much, Nathan. Connor is saying, were they both perfumed? Both? Who are we talking about? Perfumed. Harama and Cheops. Perfumed. What is that? I'm not too sure what you mean. Oh. Sorry, just having a look at something there. I'm not sure what you mean, Connor. Perfume. Harem, who took over Leto, was described. Cheops is the Greek name for Khufu. I'm sure you've heard me say this loads of times. He's the builder of the Great Pyramid. Again, I'm not sure I got my source, but it matches Cheops as one of the great builders, if you like. Described as perfume. That's interesting. Yeah. Well, quite possibly he's a god emperor and a god king, if you like, isn't he? Let's have a wee look just quickly. But what was the thing? And it's always interesting that the game Cheops is within. There you go. Khufu or Cheops, sorry, died around 2566 BC. Pardon me. Ancient Egyptian monarch, second pharaoh of the 4th dynasty. In the first half of the Old Kingdom period, 26th century BC. He succeeded his father Snefer as king. He's generally accepted as many other aspects of his reign are poorly documented. But so yeah, we have him in. If you actually have a wee look at it on Wikipedia, you'll see him discussed in Egyptian traditions, discussed in Greek traditions, discussed in Arabic traditions, etc., and also But what was the word I was thinking on? There's a wee statue of him, by the way. Cartouche names. That was it. It's a Khnum. Let's see. Just Khufu's name is dedicated to the god Khnum, which might point to an increase of Khnum's popularity in religions by dedicating their cartouche names, official royal names, to certain deities. Khufu may have viewed himself as a divine creator, a role that was already given to Khnum, the god of creation and growth. As a consequence, the king connected Khnum's name with his own. Khufu's full name is Kurumku, means Khnum protect me, while modern Egyptological pronunciation renders his name as Khufu at the time of his reign, was probably as Kauyafe, if I'm saying that right, and during the Hellenized era, Kewafe. Well, that W might be a V, maybe like Kevaf, or it's interesting. The pharaoh officially used 2 versions of his birth name, Kurumkuf and Khufu. So, Hellenized version of his name is Cheops. Let's see. There's another Hellenized name, which is Sufis, by Manetho. A rare version of the name Khufu used by Josephus is Sophie. Pronunciation is given here. That on Wikipedia was that I didn't get that. That Harem's not there, and I was going, okay. But I'm trying to figure out where the hell I found that out, and it might have been in an old encyclopedia or something like that. To be honest with you, because I've got stuff like that here. Possibly in that sense, if they're, but to be described as perfume in the book, that's interesting, Connor. Thank you. Chanson, I can fathom Leto reaching back into memories from previous links in the sausage tube, but not living simultaneously in the past, maybe getting lost in the past. Just trying to understand Julian's comment. Leto's lost in it often. Yeah, I'm going to need the context for the rest of it myself, Julian. It's just been so long since I've read it, but I get the sense that he's diving into just learning from personalities. But how, yeah, so are you, how's your awareness work in the present if you're, in your, Connor saying if I recall correctly, yeah. Not to worry, guys. As I said, it's a memory thing with me at the moment. One of the reasons why I do think this is actually because of memory, because I'm getting old and it's good to jog your memory and work your brain, isn't it? It's food for thought. Do you know what, guys? Hang on a wee second. Oh, goodness. Right, let me do a wee bit of scribbling. I'll put that. Let's see. I'm gonna have a look at Haram. I like that perfume. I'll have a wee look at that. It's an interesting way of describing someone, isn't it? Kind of reminds me of stuff from the, like the Arabian Nights, that kind of thing. Described as perfumed. Let's look that up just to get the rest of it. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. I'm really nosy at it. Leto reaching back into them. And again, this is, I suppose, the difference really in Leto and Paul's. Kind of wondered why Paul doesn't really explore all the other memories, does he? That he's supposed to have. It's all the future with him, but not living simultaneously in the past. Maybe getting lost in the past. Yeah, I think it's possibly just that if he has been alive for 1,000,000 years, as he says, that if you've got all of these strings of sausages, there's 1,000,000 years worth of memories, and even within the Leto's lifetime, which is what 3,500 years, no way you can cover all of that. But it would be easy to get in top. If I had everybody in history in my head, I probably wouldn't come out of it. I wouldn't be doing this. I'd have plenty of people to talk to. I'd be kind of curious, Julian says, Leto might answer our question later in this chapter. There's no difference between 10,000 years and 1 year, 100,000 years and one heartbeat. That's kind of the eternity thing. We've had a wee chat about it before. It's the same with the prescience. If you can see into the future, how far can you see? How many moments can you see? And you can't see more than one lifetime's worth of things in the future, because it would take you a lifetime to see them. But that means you can't see billions of years of future events, or you would have to be highly selective, wouldn't you? And I think it would probably be the same with other memory. If you want to go exploring them, you need to be pick and choose who you're chatting to, really, because I'm sure everybody there is wanting a bit of an adder. It also seems like a bit of a hell, to be honest with you, for all of the personalities that are contained in there. Julian Thompson said, Billy Pilgrim is always alive and always dead. Yes, indeed. Very good way of putting it, Julian. Billy Pilgrim is the hero, the protagonist, if you like, of Slaughterhouse 5. It's Kurt Vonnegut, basically. Love that book. I can't wait to see the film. It's an old film, isn't it, Julian? I don't know if you've seen it or not, if anybody, but I'm really curious to see what they've done with it. But I actually studied that book at university, and I was quite disturbed by it. I thought it was very interesting, and I thought it's a very honest book in a way. But it's a fascinating book, and it's an example of someone living through something, using science fiction as a medium to discuss it, to relate to it, and to explain it to the public. In a good way. I think it's a very interesting. It's a nasty topic, isn't it? Dresden and what happened there. Absolutely a war crime. If you by those standards, but World War II is total war, isn't it? So it doesn't really matter. The only people who get done for war crimes will be the losers. At least I can't think of any from the Allies that were done for war crimes. But yeah, I'd love to do a program about that sometime, but it's a long-term project, these book clubs, I have to say. Let me just figure out where we were there, folks. Tensions, all right. Yeah, could be you. Where are we up to? Right, got it. Right, I think, let me see, just Leto, burning in her chest now. She managed, right, Leto, she managed, I think this is where we're at. Oh no, I would teach my grandmother, teach me what? Last night, Gani and I played the mother-father role almost to our destruction, but we learned much. There are things one can know given an awareness of condition, actions can be predicted. Alia, now, it's well nigh certainly that she's plotting to abduct you. So Jessica blinked, shocked by the swift accusation. She knew this trick well. I've read this before as well, and had employed it many times. Set a person up along one line of reasoning, then introduced the shocker from another line. She recovered with a sharp intake of breath. I know what Alia has been doing, but what she is, but grandmother, pity her. Use your heart as well as your intelligence. You've done that before. You pose a threat, and Alia wants the Imperium for her own. At least the thing she has become wants it. Sorry, wants this. So there's a motive there, and the thing that she's become is the Baron, pretty much, and the Baron's got her. How do I know this isn't another abomination speaking? Which is a very good question. He shrugged. I always like the Atreides shrugs, if you like. There's a lot of shrugging in these books. That's where your heart comes in. How do you know I'm not an abomination? Listen to your heart, is what he's telling me. Gani and I know she fell. So it's described as a fall again. It's a kind of a religious thing, isn't it? It isn't easy to adjust the clamor of that inner multitude. Well, I suppose here, maybe this is an answer to Chaya's question. How does he do it? It isn't easy to adjust to that clamor of the inner multitude, suppress their egos, and they will come crowding back every time you invoke a memory. One day, he swallowed in a dry throat. A strong one from that inner pack decides it's time to share the flesh. And there's nothing you can do. She asked the question, although she feared the answer. We believe there is something, yes. So here we go. One, we cannot succumb to the spice. That's paramount. And two, we must not suppress the past entirely. We must use it, make an amalgam of it. Finally, we will mix them all into ourselves. We will no longer be our original selves, but we will not be possessed. And I think that's the interesting thing, that it's a state of that they're not going to be themselves. And so the statement at the beginning, they desperately need a time of freedom when we can learn how to live with what we are, how to deal with these things, I think. But if you ignore them, they'll come and go, basically. They'll have a go. So we don't use the spice to see the future. That's one thing. And we must not suppress the past entirely. We can't ignore it. We must use it, make an amalgam of it, and finally we'll mix them all into ourselves. So that the entirety, I think, of the personalities within Other Memory are integrated into that person. But the consequence of that is we will no longer be our original selves, but we will not be possessed. So the personalities won't have control. But if this happens to him, he won't be Leto anymore. But at the same time, I was thinking about that a little bit. It reminds me of Heraclitus. You never stand in the same river twice, this kind of thing. By absorbing or thinking about anything or any piece of information, you're changed by it. Even if you don't realize it, all things change subtly. And it's almost if you like, it's almost a bit of a description of a dream, isn't it? In a funny way, that when we go to sleep, we rise and process all this stuff. But when we wake up each day, we're not the same person. Never the same person from any given moment to the next. I think you're always changing. Just myself and my wife the other day were talking about how much life has changed and how different people we are from when we were younger. It was quite an interesting little conversation, how far we've come, the things that have happened to us that have shaped us, if you see what I mean. And they've not all, in fact, for myself and my wife, there have been a lot of bad things, to be honest with you. But you grow and you learn and you become better. Every little thing you do, every little thing you see, everything affects you in some way or another, which changes you, doesn't it? So you speak of a plot to abduct me. Back to it's obvious. When Sissy is ambitious for her son, Alia is ambitious for herself, and Alia and Farad'n? That is not indicated, he said. But Alia and when Sissy run parallel courses right now. When Sissy has a sister in Alia's house, what simpler thing than a message to, you know of such a message? As though I'd seen it and read its every word. But you've not seen such a message. No need. I have only to know that the Atreides are all here together on Arrakis. All of the water is in one cistern. He gestured to encompass the planet. A friend metaphor. The eggs aren't all in one basket. All the water's in one cistern. I like that. House Carino wouldn't dare attack us here. I've written next to that. Why not? I honestly, if the situation's right, I don't see why any house wouldn't attack them. And again, that's to do with how we think of melange, isn't it? That they think that the melange and the planet. I don't know. I personally wouldn't react to the Atreides myself that way. Alia would profit if they did. House Carino wouldn't dare attack us here. Alia would profit if they did. A sneer in his voice provoked her. I won't be patronized by my own grandson, she said. I think it's interesting because don't patronize me. He's going to stop patronizing and start condescending to it. I love the difference in the two words. It's one of my little fun things I like. But yeah, I won't be patronized by my own grandson, she said. Then damn it, woman, stop thinking me as your grandson. Stop thinking of me as your grandson. Think of me as your Duke Leto. Tone and facial expression, even the abrupt hand gesture, were so exact that she fell silent in confusion. This must be doing her head in here. I said Leto's told her that she's accepted it intellectually, but emotionally, it's a strange thing, isn't it? So think of me as your dead husband. And of course she did earlier, and that emitted this sort of no in her thoughts. That's a very sort of dodgy place that she could go there. In a dry, remote voice, Leto said, I tried to prepare you. Give me that at least. So, he's throwing this at her. And to think of this 9-year-old boy as her dead Duke on this world that she hates, and this siege that's a place of nightmares to her. Surely this is one more nightmare, isn't it? I think. It's quite bizarre. And the idea must be running through her head that Leto the First could take over Leto the Second, and that she could get her husband back in this 9-year-old child. And how fucked up would that be? Excuse my French. That would be severely screwed up. But I think it's in a dry, remote voice. I tried to prepare you. Give me that at least. Give me some. I will try to prepare you for this. But it must be quite shocking to her. Why would Alia abduct me? To blame it on House Carino, of course. Plans with it, yeah, and who are going to actually, and again, if they've got a plan in action, easy to blame them for it, isn't it? I don't believe it. Even for her, this would be monstrous. Too dangerous. How could she do it without, I cannot believe this. ... When it happens, you'll believe. Grandmother, Gani and I have but to eavesdrop within ourselves, and we know. It's simple self-preservation. How else can we even guess at the mistakes being made around us? I do not for a minute accept that abduction is a part of Alia's, and he cuts her off here. God, Gods below, how can you, a Bene Gesserit, be this dense? The whole Imperium suspects why you're here. When Sissy's propagandists are all prepared to discredit you, Alia can't wait for that to happen. If you go down, House Atreides could suffer a mortal blow. What does the whole Imperium suspect? She measured out the words as coldly as possible, knowing she could not sway this Unchild with any wile of voice. I think that's interesting. The term calls him a child at the start, and now he's an Unchild. Preborn, unborn, this kind of thing, and not a child at all. And she can't swim with any wile of voice, so that's interesting because he's going to do it to her. The Lady Jessica plans to breed those twins together, he rasped. So what does the whole Imperium suspect? That the Lady Jessica plans to breed those twins together, he rasped. That's what the Sisterhood wants. Incest. And we already know that incest is a big part of the breeding program. And I always got the sense that actually incest was a kind of how would you put it? Almost a desired thing. That they're trying to turn certain genetic traits back in. If you see what I mean. That was always I got the sense of the Kwisatz Haderach, the achievement of the Kwisatz Haderach required incest. So the Lady Jessica plans to breed these twins together. That's what the Sisterhood wants. So we'll have another go at Kwisatz Haderach. We'll breed these two twins. And again, just sort of turning those genes again into themselves. She bring idle rumor she's swallowed. The Bene Gesserits will not let such a rumor run wild in the Imperium. We still have some influence. Remember that. That seems kind of silly in a way because it is running all over the Imperium. The Bene Gesserit, I'm sure, do plenty of things like that. We still have some influence. Remember that. Suggests that it's diminished. Rumor. What rumor? You've certainly held your options open on interbreeding us. He shook his head as she started to speak. Don't deny it. Let us past puberty still living in the same household and you in that household, and your influence will be no more than a rag waved in the face of a sandworm. None at all. Do you believe us to be such utter fools? Jessica asked. Indeed I do. Your sisterhood is nothing but a bunch of damn fool old women who haven't thought beyond their precious breeding program. Gani and I know the leverage they have. Do you think us fools? Leverage? I don't know, what has the Bene Gesserit got on her? They know you're a Harkonnen. Oh, here we go. Here's this. This is a bit, folks. They know you're a Harkonnen. It'll be in their breeding records. Jessica out of Tandidia Neris by the Baron Vladimir Harkonnen. That record, accidentally made public, would pull your teeth too. And you think the Sisterhood would stoop to blackmail? I know they would. Oh, they coded it sweetly. They told you to investigate the rumors about your daughter. They fed your curiosity and your fears. They invoked your sense of responsibility, made you feel guilty because you fled back to Caladan, and they offered you the prospect of saving your grandchildren. Let's just stop there a wee second. Let me grab a wee quick. Just looking for a pen there. Why am I looking for a pen? That'll do. Right. Very quickly. This strike speaks heavily of the manipulation of Jessica by the Sisterhood, I think. Don't know whether you agree with me or not, but the key words here: curiosity, fear, responsibility, guilt, saving, if you like. Curiosity, fears, sense of responsibility, guilty, and the prospect of saving your children. All of these things, I think, are this Jessica manipulated. And they know her so well, I think. And this is the point that's going to be made. Now, before we go any further, let's just jump back. They know you're a Harkonnen. It'll be in their breeding programs. Jessica out of Tandidia Neris by the Baron Vladimir Harkonnen. So this is a birth record. And so Tandidia Neris. Neris is an anagram of nurse. I was having a wee look. Tandidia made me think of Candidia, etc. I didn't really get anything on that. Candide is optimism, isn't it? But I'll have a wee, again, just having a nosy at that. I was starting to have a look at anagrams there because nurse is Neris. But I was getting all sorts of things out of Tandidia. I did, etc. So I'm not too sure in relation to the etymology of that. I've had a nosy at it, but not found anything. Again, I'll keep looking. We usually get the words eventually, don't we? But let's, what we're going to do, folks, is very quickly jump over to the Dune Encyclopedia. There we go. And we have this name, Tandidia Neris, has an entry in the encyclopedia. Identified by Leto II. So this is Neris Tandidia, dates unknown, but based on this, we would sort of know the dates, I think. If we have Mohiams, identified by Leto II before his accession to the throne as the mother of Lady Jessica Atreides. And here's our quote. This is in the so Jessica out of Tandidia Neris by the Baron Vladimir Harkonnen. That's what we've just read, and this is also in the encyclopedia. This statement, now found recorded in Leto's journals, apparently sparked centuries of argument and analysis amongst generations of Atreides scholars, as evidenced by speculations about the existence of any Tandidia. Oh, hang on a minute. That's not the name I have. Hold on, folks. Where are we? Right. What have we got here? Have we got a mistake? Hang on. 47. Right, bear with me a wee second, folks. I have the name in this book as, could maybe somebody confirm this for me? It's Tandidia Neris. I'll type it in here. Just a wee second. I've got a problem here. Let's have a look. Oh dear. Let's get that out the road. Let's plonk that there. Let's do that there. Right. This is how I have it in my copy, folks. And I'm just curious if your copies have the same name, because it's different in the encyclopedia. I have Tandidia Neris in this. But in this, I have Tandidia Neris, which is not the same. Oops, goodness. Not the same name at all. Now, hang on, I have Chaya saying I have Tandidia Neris. Oh, for goodness sake. Thank you, Chaya. Right, good. I have a whole note on this, so let's go find it. There she is. It's not right. This stuff does my head, and you know, sometimes it's just annoying. It's not Tandidia Neris. Has anybody else got another? I'm going to go with it's my book. It's almost always these British copies that are rubbish. Tandidia Neris, Berkeley edition. There we go. Then it's Tandidia. Thank you. Oh dear. You sit and try to find out the meaning of words and stuff, and they're not even right in the book. I'm still disgusted about my copy of Dune doesn't even have Peter de Vries's name right all the way through the book. It's Peter de Vries. Thank you so much. It's a mistake in my book then. I've got Tandidia. I should have noticed it, but in the encyclopedia I've got Tandidia. And it is Tandidia. Right. Honest to God. By the Lord, by the Lord of Hells, here's Glorious Maximus. Golance. Yeah. You go, I couldn't find that word. It's because it isn't the word. So very quickly, I'll have a wee quick nosy if I can see anything. Put that name. There you go. Up pops, guys. Oh. Bear with me a second, just quickly, just to see if anything pops up. Trinity etymology. First thing pops up is Gaius Halmohem. There's a Tanita family history. What's this? No, that's not. That's Korean. Tanita is the name of Japanese origin. Tani meaning valley, Ida meaning strength. No, I don't. That's Tanita. Right. Anyway, again, folks, I will try and do a wee bit more work on that for next week. It could be an anagram, actually. This one. Let me just check. Oh God, that's annoying. Anyway, it's Tanita Nurse, and I'll get back to reading from this. I'll catch up with your. Oh goodness, right. Let's see. China saying, if you like Vonnegut, try Welcome to the Monkey House. Great collection of short stories. Oh, thank you. That'll be. I love short stories. It's a great way of getting into an author quickly. If you like, I'm reading that many at the moment. Breakfast of Champions 2. I've got a call. That's the other book that I have here. By him, I've got Slaughterhouse 5 and Breakfast of Champions. Timequake isn't that good, but it relates to what we've been talking about. China said, knowing he is Paul's son, I'm surprised Jessica doesn't ask Leto about his prescient dreams for herself or for the sisterhood. It's a similar situation to Gaius Halmohem coming to see Paul, and the fact that he can see a little bit of the future. Tell me about your dreams. I totally agree. It would be of absolute interest to her and the sisterhood, simply based on their previous behavior. Inbreeding it a quick way to a new species. India. Tandida Neris. I have Tanidia. Yes. So what the actual proper name? I'll thank you, folks. Try to say I have Tanidia Neris, Berkeley edition. Connor saying Tanidia Neris. I have completely the wrong name. Tandidia. Which is where I was making me think of Candidia, which is the version of Torquemada's wife and Nemesis the Warlock. But yeah, I just noticed that Neris was an anagram of nurse. And I was wondering, I'll maybe have a wee look at it in terms of anagrams. But yeah, India's there, India there. I don't know. Anyway, sorry about that, but thank you very much. This happens a lot with the British editions. I'm just going to go with it. It's the British editions. I'm not too sure if, have no truck. It's bugs me. Right. Anyway, let me just look her up again here. Tandidia Neris. Where are we? Tanidia. I've got to stop saying that, haven't I? It's Tanidia Neris. Right. Apologies. I was just going to say my wrath at this is fake. By the way, I'm quite amused by all the mistakes in the British copies of the books. There's so many different publishers as well because I've got loads of them. Bear with me. MLB. There she is. Right. Okay. There's a reasonably lengthy entry here in the encyclopedia. In the Dune encyclopedia. Let's have a wee quick look. So, yeah. So here we go. So, speculation about the existence of any Tanidia Neris in numerous and various materials discovered in the Rackus finds. Here we go. Many scholars rejected Leto's identification of Neris as Jessica's mother on the grounds that it was made before Leto had begun any investigation of his ancestral memories before he became emperor. Before he became emperor and ascended the Lion Throne, and before he had access to the Bene Gesserit breeding records. They believed his statement to be based on either whimsy or incomplete information about his grandmother's heritage. Other scholars believe the name Tanidia Neris to be the resolution of a historical mystery and labored to uncover proof of her existence and ultimate maternity of Jessica. Certainly in his lifetime, Leto II was never to utter another word in public which would settle the matter on either side. We'll not hear the name again in the book, by the way. However, through the sources available today, particularly those of Lady Ganima, Duncan Idaho 13015, and the journals of Leto II, the Atreides scholars descending from both sides of the argument seem able to finally agree on the answer that Jessica's real mother was the Bene Gesserit Reverend Mother Gaius Helen Mohiam, who used the name Tanidia Nerys when she presented herself as concubine to the Baron Vladimir Harkonnen, and that any written record of Tanidia Nerys was merely part of an attempt by the Bene Gesserit to keep Mohiam's identity secret. That's interesting, I suppose, in consideration with other memory and even with what the Kwisatz Haderach is. Surely at that point, they would expect that it'd be hard for them to keep any secrets because of other memory. That's kind of what I thought. One recent scholar, I'll just go on. I have another 2 paragraphs to read. I'll just might as well go through it quickly. One recent scholar, again, this is from the Dune Encyclopedia. One recent scholar, Gwillet McNeil, has suggested in the Nerys Mohiam controversy that Leto deliberately put forth the Nerys name for 2 reasons. First, Leto may have wanted to keep the identity of Jessica's real mother from her, fearing that knowledge of Gaius Helen Mohiam's maternal relationship might have been too much for Jessica to face under the very difficult circumstances of the revelation of her daughter Alia as Abomination. Leto may have feared that if Jessica learned that the woman who had given her son the test of the Gom Jabbar, who had become the Corino truthsayer, who had acted in loco matris to her, and who had conspired against Paul in the name of the sisterhood, was her true mother, it might have unhinged Jessica's sanity. Second, McNeil suggests that Leto himself might not have been able to face the knowledge that he was not only part Harkonnen, but also was part Mohiam, and hence part Bene Gesserit, part which Leto, after all, was barely 9 years old at the time, and may have lacked a certain amount of emotional maturity. Thus, his very youth may have forced him to lie to himself and to his grandmother Jessica. Whether the final truth in this matter, and indeed it may never be known with any certainty, the identity of both Tanidia Nerys and or Jessica's true mother remain a fascinating subject of conjecture by many scholars. So there you go. That's the entry on her in the Dune Encyclopedia. I've always run with it that Mohiam was the grandmother. Even before we got the sort of, I never noticed that, by the way. I flicked through that book quite a lot, but I hadn't noticed it, and I probably missed this once upon a time. But based on her behavior in the first book, that was simply what made me think that she had a kind of maternal attitude, I always thought, to Jessica and Paul. Even through the Gom Jabbar test, But there we go. It's an interesting little thing. Tanidia Nerys, therefore, is an alias of the Reverend Mother Gaius Helen Mohiam. And that's what we can get from that. Jessica out of Tanidia Nerys by the Baron Vladimir Harkonnen. The only other way that you could interpret that would be that was where she was born. But I think it is a person. And again, that's the encyclopedia. It's a whole bunch of different people working on it, but with help from Frank, I think. And it's considered canon by Frank Herbert, who is deceased, of course, but it's not considered canon by the Herbert estate, run by Brian, etc., who've gone out of their way to make sure you can't get this book, which I think is one of the biggest forms of literary arseholery I've ever witnessed. Not a fan of all the reasons I might not be a fan of Brian Herbert and Kevin J. Anderson. That is the biggest one. Is that there was a legal matter involving Dr. Willis E. McNally and this book. So it's available free online in PDF. I've got copies of, I think we've put stuff up. And if you've got a copy, you can see mine out, it's got tape on it and stuff like that. It has been used, but it's a great fun book. And it's got some lovely illustrations and stuff in it. And it's a lovely book for a Dune fan. And for the Herbert estate to come out and say this is a load of when there's a letter in it at the start from Frank Herbert himself in 1983. I must confess, I'll read the letter. I'll just read the last paragraph. I must confess that I found it fascinating to re-enter here some of the sources on which the chronicles are built. As the first Dune fan, I give this encyclopedia my delighted approval, although I hold my own counsel on some of the issues still to be explored as the chronicles unfold. Frank Herbert, Port Townsend. I think that's Washington, November 1983. Need to put a little bit more tape in there. There you go. I'm sure quite a few people who are fond of the encyclopedia. It means that people can't pick up new copies of it and stuff like that. And it is about literary control. It's about control of a franchise. It's about cash and money. As Christopher Hitchin used to say, was it God corrupt? Is it God ruins everything or something like that? I always think it's money. You know. Let me just catch up with your comments for a second, folks. Chess says, if Paul ever explored his mother's ancestry and discovering he was Harkonnen, Leto could access it. But it doesn't settle the matter. Leto would know the woman as the Baron did, fake name included. Yeah. I actually wondered, is it possibly because of there might be spies? Does that make sense? That as much as that's the record, if it isn't an alias, then it's hiding the real identity so that nobody's particularly bothered if they figure out that Jessica's mother is Tanidia. I've got to change that here as well. Hang on. Right, just lose that D. Tanidia. There we go. There it is. But it's possible they use that alias. If that is the case, simply to avoid giving away something, you know. But at the same time, he's talking about No, I don't buy that at all, because you're a Harkonnen. He said that out loud. You know, no, I'm not buying my own argument there. I think it's a load of crap. I haven't thought about it. But Joe said my encyclopedia is a mess. Mine's not too bad, but it's got a kind of spinal thing. But if you look, I don't know if you can see it carefully, but there's lots of sellotape on this. This is a good way of dealing with it. There you go. And right around it and stuff. It kind of keeps, when books start to go apart a wee bit like this, a wee bit of sellotape can do the world of good. You know, and just as long as you're careful with it and trim it. And if you, if I did that to a book, I would use, I'd get the tape on, and then I would just use a wee scalpel, you know, to trim it. You know, and it'll keep. A lot of big books just tend to fall apart, you know, with splits, or else the glue goes over years, that kind of thing. Most of my Frank Herbert books tend to fall apart quite easily. Oh dear. So let's see. I worry about Dune prophecy. I'm not worrying about it at all, Julian. I'm not particularly bothered by anything that Brian and Herbert and Kevin J. Anderson do. I just think that everything that they do diminishes Frank's original work. Positive feedback, isn't it? That's what Frank would put it. But also in terms of what Frank himself said about what he was trying to do with his book and how he viewed science fiction, they have taken his work and done exactly what he didn't want. And they've taken it back to the gutter. And he's trying to create the real work of literature. And I'm not being, no harm to them. Their writing's fine and all that, but they're not Frank Herbert. And their books read like pulp fiction. To me, just not the same at all. I'm happy to be critical of Frank and his writing and stuff, but he's a good writer. He's a really good writer. I mean, he has a very particular, I've always said this, a very, very particular authorial voice. I think if anybody stepped in to try and write another Dune book, you'd almost have to set yourself up with a given vocabulary, if you see what I mean. Frank has certain little stylizations, ways of saying things and stuff like that. And his language is often complicated and almost technical, if you see what I mean. But it's an illusion, if you like. And but it is the stuff that he writes, particularly the epigraphs. That's where it screams, who's writing this? Somebody once said it was like the difference of reading an epigraph. Like, here you go. Here's a Frank Herbert epigraph from the next chapter. Atrocity is recognized as such by victim and perpetrator alike, but all who learn about it at whatever remove. By all, atrocity has no excuses, no mitigating argument. Atrocity never balances or rectifies the past. Atrocity merely arms the future for more atrocity. It is self-perpetuating upon itself, a barbarous form of incest. Whoever commits atrocity also commits those future atrocities they'll spread. From the Apocrypha of Muad'Dib, something like Brian Herbert and Kevin J. stuff. This is the one I always like. The Bene Gesserit are mostly all wood. That's the level of it. anyway. And I love Bill and Ted, by the way. That's not a criticism of them, but it's just not the same. And write your own stories. Stop wrecking other people's work. Yeah, but I'm not too worried about that. It's going to be the Dune prophecies, but that's obviously one of their work. It's I think the idea is that we can run so far into the past. The character of Gene Butler, by the way, that they created as an attempt to show that Frank didn't get his ideas from Samuel Butler. There's and Frank himself lies a bit. By the way, he's a bit of a liar, Frank. But don't we all? But in terms of where he gets some of his ideas, Frank's ideas aren't. I think we've proved this over and over again. They're not that original. He's taken and borrowed and stolen from all sorts of people. But what is original is what he did with them, I think. And as they say, great writers steal, bad writers borrow. Don't they? Brian Herbert is up there with Stephen Joyce. Let's have a look at Stephen Joyce, because I'm not familiar. Oh, don't tell me. Oh my God, right, okay, yeah, when I heard Joyce, grandson of James Joyce and the executor of Joyce's literary estate. Right? No, he sounds like a real arsehole, doesn't he? So this is the trustee of the James Joyce estate. Joyce is Sean Sweeney with the joint trustees of the estate of James Joyce. As a trustee, he brought numerous lawsuits of threat of legal action against scholars, biographers, and artists attempting to quote from Joyce's literary work or personal correspondence. In 2004, Joyce threatened legal action against the Irish government when the Rejoice Dublin 2004 festival proposed public readings of excerpts of Ulysses on Bloomsday. Bloomsday is a big thing in Ireland. People go, down to Dublin and do their thing, go around the city with the book. It's a big thing, I think. I'm not a big fan of James Joyce, by the way. In 1988, he destroyed a collection of letters written by Lucia Joyce, his aunt. He forced Brandon Maddox to delete a postscript concerning Lucia from biography, nor the real life of Molly Bloom. After 1990, he announced no permissions would be granted to quote from his grandfather's work. Libraries holding letters by James Joyce are unable to show them without permission. Versions of his work online were disallowed. Joyce said he was protecting his grandfather's and family reputation, but he would sometimes grant permission to use material in exchange for fees that were deemed by some as extortionate. In January 12th, 70 calendar years after James Joyce's death, all of his works entered public domain in much of the world. A transition talked up in certain quarters that were a bookish version of the destruction of the Death Star, with Stephen Joyce cast as a highbrow Darth Vader, suddenly no longer in a position to breathe heavily down the necks of rebel Joyceans. So about the expiry of European copyright in the works of James Joyce. The link was accompanied by a curt message to Joyce's grandson and sole living descendant. Fuck you, Stephen Joyce. EU copyright on James Joyce's works ends at midnight. Yeah. It's no longer necessary to receive permission from James Joyce's estate to quote from the work he published in his lifetime. The status of his posthumous publications, the letters and manuscripts, for instance, is still unclear. Yes, some of his work remains protected by copyright. Excuse me, I'm going to take a drink. Yeah. Dear, oh dear. That's not so good. There's a few people like that. Thank you for that. I saw the word Joyce. I went, oh no, don't tell me. He burned less. There's asshole executor. Yeah. Yeah, that sort of behavior within his estate is appalling. Especially when a work is so well regarded. Ulysses is kind of just a reshaping of the Odyssey. Just to let you know, folks, by the way, I just saw a trailer today. If anybody wants to check it out, the film is called The Returns. There we go. Oh, The Return. Sorry, not The Returns, The Return. If anybody knows, they're Lewis. All right, bear with me a second. Go down. Oh goodness, I could have getting another copy of this, couldn't I? It's getting tatty. No, is it in here? I'm wondering. Library. This is from the Epitomes. Anyway, what it's about, sorry, I'm not worried about that. It's Connor saying, saw that. It's Rafe Fiennes as Odysseus. So it's looking like the Odyssey. Yeah, that's it, Rafe Fiennes. It was looking reasonably faithful. Pardon me. To the story. That looks pretty interesting. And I think somebody once asked me, "Isn't the end of the Odyssey?" And I said, "That's an absolute slaughter fest. The god so bad that the gods have to come down and go stop." You know, it's not a it's not a gentle ending at all. It's I love the Odyssey. I've got a really good audiobook version of it. I think it's possibly the BBC with Tim McInerney as Odysseus, which is very good. But consistently over the years, I don't think I've ever seen a good film version of the Odyssey. At the same time, I don't think I've ever seen a good film version of the Iliad either. The Wolfgang Petersen version of Troy that came out recently. Well, recently, God's sake, that's not recent at all. This is about 10, 12, 15, maybe 20 years ago, I don't know. It was absolutely appalling. Just, what the hell's this? It sure as hell isn't the Iliad. You know, Connor, I just got a copy of Samuel Butler's translation of the Odyssey. I'm assuming, Connor. Very good. I'm still dying to get a copy of my T.E. Shaw one. That was the one I was saying I was going to have a read at it again. And the one that I would like to have read was T.E. Shaw's one, The Lawrence of Arabia's. E.V. Rue's good, but I'm actually going to read the E.V. Rue. I've got this big illustrated one full of archaeological evidence, which is it's the Odyssey, but with a wealth of pictures and stuff. It's a beautiful copy. I guess I should read that. Translations are great, you know. You get a little bit of variety in how different authors treat the story and how they what did I do with it? You know, whether they go poetic or prose, for example. There's prose translations of the Odyssey and poetic on. What the hell have I done with it? I think I showed you it a couple of weeks ago. I might have stuck it down in my room. In fact, I can see, sorry, I don't have it sitting there handy because I know where it is. It's not in its place. God, I've got that many books moved around here at the minute. But it's that's a copy. It's a copy that I've just sat and flicked through, looking at all the pictures with. Oh wow, look at that! It's full of archaeological evidence and photographs of the real places and the real locations in the Odyssey. So it's a delight. That's the E.V. Rue. It's the illustrated Odyssey by E.V. Rue. But can't wait to. Yeah, it's. Oh, I can't remember who it was. I think it was Bob said something about the Iliad a wee while back, and I had forgotten it. And whenever that happens, it's time to read them again. You know. But I read the Iliad and the Odyssey every couple of years. I wouldn't read it every year, but I've got 3 or 4 different versions of both. And I was testing out my new teeth on an audiobook there. I did The Emissary by Ray Bradbury recently, just as a bit of fun for Halloween. But I've got a poetic and a prose version of the War of the Mice and Frogs. I'll not stumble over it in my mouth with these teeth. And I'm hoping to record it soon to get it up there. So a little bit of Homerica for anybody who wants to have a listen at me reading it. I look forward to it. But you can't beat these stories, I'm afraid. I'm always appalled by people who change, adapt these stories that survive thousands of years. There's a reason that they survive thousands of years. It's because they're that good. You should not rewrite Homer. In the same way as Denis Villeneuve shouldn't rewrite Frank Herbert, I think. There you go. But it's, you know, even things like Aesop's Fables. I don't know. People just want to change stuff and put their names to it and claim it as their own work, don't they? Public domain is great, and it's interesting to see different takes culturally, I think, sometimes on stuff. But I don't think that stories should be changed and characters should be changed to suit modern audiences, this kind of thing. You know, because you'd never fucking learn a thing about the past first. Everything that you do learn from a movie will be wrong. It's as simple as that. If you went and watched Wolfgang Petersen's Troy, you are seriously misinformed about the stories of the Iliad and the Odyssey. You know, the Trojan War. You'd actually look like an idiot if you talked about it in front of people. which is kind of bad, really, because and that's the thing. I think sometimes, oh, let's go read the book. Wow, that's so much better than the film. There's so much more in it, etc. I know there's problems for adapting things for screen and stuff, but I don't adapt it for screen. Do not change it. Do not. It's not your story to mess with. Don't change characters. Don't. That's the worst. If you change characters for me, I'm kind of done with it. Whenever they did Riverworld, that somebody made a wee copy, made a version of the Riverworld, like a mini series, and the main character, the major character, the protagonist of the goddamn books is Richard Francis Burton, of all people. Captain Sir Richard Francis Burton is the hero of those books. And they went, he's not interesting enough. Let's throw him out and make him an American astronaut. And I didn't even go near it. I metaphorically in my own head spat on the show. And I caught a bit of it, and this is just, what the hell's this? Why would you take one of the most interesting people in human history and think, oh, he's a bit dull, I'll make him an astronaut instead, I think Hollywood gets a bit thick on it sometimes. Excuse me. Right, I'm preaching here. Yes, I should read that. Right, I'm getting that AV Rue one. Oh, if you love it. It's around here somewhere, but I've shown it on the screen a few times. But whenever I was saying, I'm going to read, I have to read the Odyssey again. The one that I really wanted to read was T.E. Shaw's, which I've read before. It's just an easy version of it, but it's E.V. Rue. If anybody wants a great translation of the Iliad or the Odyssey, E.V. Rue is your man. Connor's got it spelt correctly there. E.V. Rue is the founder of Penguin Classics, and he's wow, amazing. But if you pick up a Penguin Classics, he's generally one of the editors, etc. The old, particularly the old ones, but the modern ones too, I suppose. Oh, just to show you, I suppose they're slightly different now, anyway, aren't they? But that's the old ones. There, but I've got only. I used to have absolutely. This is the books that I lost the most were these old Penguin Classics, and the great book called 2005, I think it was. That's one of my all-time favorite books. There, you can look at the state of it, and that I read that every year. And I'm actually reading it today. I love Aesop, and that's the modern ones there. There's Herodotus there. Oh, again, they do these sort of color codes on them and stuff now, depending on where they're from, that sort of thing, or what topic they fall into and stuff. Chinese poetry and all things. Green, classic, or is purple. But again, I think there's new ones now. I think they've changed that. But I actually like these little indicators that, if you notice that those actually mean something. The colors there on those books. But yeah, E.V. Rue is, his translations are fantastic, and they're pretty bang on too. If anybody doesn't know much about him, by the way, there we are. Emile Victor Roux, CBE, British classicist, publisher, poet, and translator, initiated the Penguin Classic series of books in 1946 and was its editor for 20 years. So there you go. He's a geezer. In terms of publishing, I think he's possibly, I think he's brilliant. Roux himself, here you go. Here's his list. This is incomplete because I've got his Odyssey. So Roux himself also translated the Iliad, the Voyage of the Argo, the Argonautica, by Apollonius of Rhodes, the Four Gospels, Virgil's pastoral poems. Let's see, having become an Anglican for he sat on the joint churches oversaw the production of the New English Bible 1961 to 70. Genial and witty Roux was a friend and editorial mentor of the science fiction writer Olaf Stapleton. Olaf Stapleton is brilliant. So there you go. It's there's a tribute to him here. That's interesting. I'll read this to you very quickly, and we'll get back to this. Irish poet Patrick Kavanagh evoked the translation's crisp and readable character in the poem on looking into E.V. Roux's Homer. In stubble fields, the ardent spirits the imagination heeds. Nothing dies. There are no empty spaces in the cleanest reaped fields. There you go. English poet Stevie Smith was moved by Rue's translation of the Gospel of Mark to write her poem "The Airy Christ," for which she credited him in her brief introduction. But that's what he's responsible for. So if anybody's ever not too sure, if you've got it, if you're working with a Penguin classic by him, you're gonna be reading a damn good translation. But as I said, I've got a copy. Didn't mention he did the Odyssey there, did it? I've got a copy of his Odyssey, and it's illustrated and photographed, and it is beautiful. I've held it up quite a few times, but that's the one I'll be reading next. Yeah, but sorry, I'm like a pig rooting in its own feces with all of that stuff. I love the archaeology side of the classical world, you know. But it's great when you look at these things to see, oh, these people were real. You know, Odysseus was a real person. Ithaca is a real place. All you get my drift, and you can actually, again, it's about stepping back into that world and realizing that as much as this is a story, that there's a level of truth to it, which is brilliant. Julian tells the ancient writers would often write anonymously and attribute the work to a god or king. Connor said, "You'd like the landmark editions of Herodotus." I'm still working away on this one at the minute. This is my old. I'll not tell you where I got this one. It's a library book I grabbed. Sorry. Yeah, that's mine. And I was reading. I'm reading all sorts of things at the minute, but I had some stuff about prescience and so on. But I wanted to keep it to be had a chapter about just oracles in the ancient world and stuff like that. It's great fun. I love Herodotus. He's a great writer, you know. Reading that again depends on the translator, but Herodotus is well worth a read. And even just in the introduction to histories, you can see an association with mythology and the real world. Especially, I think, within Herodotus, talks about the kidnap of certain women, the rape of certain women within the ancient world that line up to the mythological kidnappings of Zeus, if you like, and kind of giving you an explanation for it. It's a fascinating book, you know. If you wanted to get a really good sense of Greek history at that period, Herodotus histories, and then you would Thucydides' history of the Peloponnesian War would be worth a read, and Xenophon's pretty good. They're kind of three kind of historical individuals. They tend to be grouped together if you're studying that kind of stuff, you know. Also attribute the work to cooking. My favorite one of those is Julian, what you were saying, Conversation True Joe. Chad saying it's almost 2:30 a.m. for me. Time to say goodnight. All thanks, Doc. Goodness, sorry, Chad. No worries. Thanks very much for joining us. Take it easy, and look after yourself, Chad. Thanks very much for your comments and insight as always. Take care. Yeah, landmark editions. I haven't seen those. Again, some of the books I have are pretty old, and it's interesting that any given degree, by the way, generally has a 10-year lifespan. I don't know if anybody knows this, but it's just simply, particularly with something like classic stuff that you thought might have changed within that time. Somebody might have dug up something new. Someone might have found some new evidence, change what you thought. But whenever I was at university, Herodotus was known. The general attitude was he's a lying sack of etc. You can refer to him as the father of history or the father of all lies. It actually says this on the back of this book. Actually, Herodotus has been called the father of all lies as well as the father of history. But it was a feature of his method when evidence was lacking to record popular belief, and the result is one of the most entertaining books in the world. But work's been done on him since, and you're saying these have got maps and notes. That would be good. So my understanding is that they we're not really giving him the title of father of all lies anymore. We're sticking a lot of the stuff that he says seems to be bang on. There's everybody saying good night to Chaya. Night Chaya from Connor. Night Julian says, and landmarks have good maps and notes. Xenophon, Thucydides, and Arian. Yes, indeed. Yeah, there's some great. Some of the I'm not too familiar with too many of the Roman historians. Dio and stuff like that. But yeah, I'm much more of a Greek person than the Romans. But people like Tacitus and stuff like that, is interesting as well. Connor, I don't know if you've read him. The Germania and Agricola by Tacitus. He's an interesting guy. Tacitus is Agricola is Tacitus's father-in-law, I believe. So let me have a wee quick look. There's a board game called Agricola. I did not know that. Gnaeus Julius Agricola, Roman general and politician responsible for much of the Roman conquest of Britain. So, Tacitus. Agricola's Tacitus's father-in-law. So there's a life of Tacitus, a life of Agricola by him, and then a book studying the German people, the Germania, it's called, which is very interesting. Again, lets you see what the Romans thought of the Germans in that part of the world. Tacitus mentions Christ. There's a few Roman writers that mention, don't he really? Christ mentioned a few times by people in the ancient world, but not too often. Well, when's Tacitus about? What's his dates? 56 to 120 AD. Yeah. Yeah, there you go. I was just Publius Cornelius Tacitus. Just in general, one of the historians I know a little bit about that, so because I've read his stuff. Surviving portions of his two major works, the Annals and the Histories, examine the reigns of emperors Tiberius, Claudius Nero, and those who reigned in the year of the four emperors. Two works span the history of the Roman Empire after the death of Augustus and the death of Domitian, although there are substantial lacunae in the surviving text. Yeah, his annals are interested in providing an early account of the persecution of Christians and one of the earliest extra biblical references to the crucifixion of Jesus. Yeah, they do, probably possibly only to the later date, maybe. But there are Roman records of Jesus. There's a few, but most of them are many years later. I think a couple of them in particular are like a couple of centuries later, But circa 120 AD. Yeah, I suppose if you can put a date to the annals, then you can date that, can't you? There they are. Covered, so they'd have to be at least after 68 AD. And books cover the reign of Nero. Second half of book 16 is missing, ending with the events of 66. Not knowing where Tacitus completed the work, he died before completing the planned histories of Navon and Trajan, and no records survive of the works on Augustus at the beginning of the empire, which he planned to finish. The Annals is one of the earliest secular historical records to mention Jesus of Nazareth, which Tacitus does in connection with Nero's persecutions of the Christians. But you still haven't given me a date, have you? Let's have a wee quick look. I'm not here, folks. I'm sorry. I could run into this stuff all day. That's not what me. Oh dear. Damn the Romans! Ancestral memories laughing at you. What did they ever do for us? I don't mind the Romans at all. Connor Quinn says, I remember his, or was it Caesar's description of the huge Germanic forest? Yeah, it might. Well, Caesar, I think it's probably Tacitus. It's a full book on the Germania as the country and the peoples, etc., and their habits. It's an interesting book. And it gives you a bit of insight into how the German or the Romans look at people. Yeah, good stuff. I've got a couple of other history books here, actually classical ones that I haven't read. I've got some Cassius Dio here and a couple of other things. But I said the Roman side of things never. It wasn't kind of where my head was. I covered. I did a whole bunch of courses on Rome, but I mainly stuck to things that were parallel to the Greek courses, if you like. So as much as I studied Greek drama, but I studied Roman drama with it, that kind of thing. So I matched certain Roman topics to the Greek ones that I was doing, just for comparison. Because I did a minor and did another degree in Irish studies, I matched actually topics from it to the so gods, heroes, and mortals, and mythology and Irish studies, and I would do the same thing in the Greek and Roman worlds as well. So it was when I was studying, I was actually because I was looking a little bit at my own culture as well. I thought it was particularly interesting to look at my own culture and compare it to the ancient Greeks and the Romans, just in terms of their development and stuff like that. So which is an odd way of doing it, Yeah, right. Anyway, let me catch up to where we were, folks. Sorry, we went off on one, didn't we? Right. Here we go. So it was those 4 words. Do you think the sisterhood would stoop to blackmail? Yeah. They manipulated her curiosity, her fears. They invoked your sense of responsibility, made you feel guilty because you'd fled back to Callum, and offered you the prospect of saving your grandchildren. It seems like an awful lot of emotional manipulation there. And it's coming from the sisterhood, who would know how to do this to her. Jessica could only stare at him in silence. It was as though he'd eavesdropped on the emotional meetings with her proctors from the sisterhood. It's as if he'd heard everything they said. She felt completely subdued by his words, and now began to accept the possibility that he spoke the truth when he said Alia planned abduction. And he's right. It's basically, he's right. She knows he's right, I think, but there's a level of denial in it, I think. I think part of what Leto's doing is really trying to get Jessica to look at herself and see what's been done to her, and possibly prize that loyalty to the Bene Gesserit away, or break it in some way, I think. As I said, I was always wondering, has she gone back to the Bene Gesserit? The answer is yes, and it's pretty much there right now. But at the same time, grandmother's going to sort of evoke out the personal side of it, if you like. We'll see it in a minute. You see, grandmother, I have a difficult decision to make, he said. Do I follow the Atreides mystique? It's one thing. Do I live for my subjects and die for them? Or do I choose another course, one which would permit me to live thousands of years? Now, we're about to head into something quite interesting. I was going to make a wee quick point there earlier, guys, but what was it? We're talking about people, sort of ancient writers would often write anonymously, attribute the work to God or King. My favorite one of those is The Voyage of the Argo by Apollonius of Rhodes. I think and there's Connor saying, sorry, but I got to go. Night all. No worries, Connor. Thanks very much, as always, for everything. And it's Apollonius of Rhodes is not from Rhodes. As far as I know, he's from Alexandria, and he published the Argonautica. And my understanding is the people hated it so much that they drove him from the city. And he went to Rhodes and kind of redid the thing, and they loved it. And that's why we have the Argonautica, but it's by Apollonius of Rhodes. But he's an Egyptian. I think. Here, let me just check, actually. But I always thought that was a great one. I don't know if I don't know where I read that Apollonius. There we go. Yeah, so he's a Greek. Sorry, of course he's a Greek. Best known for the Argonautica, innovative influence in providing Ptolemaic Egypt with a cultural mnemonic or national archive of images, and offering the Latin poets Virgil and Gaius Valerius Flaccus a model for their own epics. I would say that Virgil's epics were modeled on. There's no reference for that. Virgil's epics are modeled on the Iliad and the Odyssey. Well, the Aeneid certainly is. We've got fragments of some concerning the beginnings of foundations of Alexandria and his places of interest to the Ptolemies, whom he served as a scholar and librarian at the Library of Alexandria. This is a literary dispute with Callimachus, another Alexandrian librarian poet, is a topic much discussed by modern scholars. It's thought to give some insight into poetry, although there's little evidence that there ever was such a dispute between them two men. In fact, almost nothing at all is known about Apollonius, and even his connection with Rhodes is a matter of speculation. One considered a mere imitator of Homer and therefore a failure as a poet, his reputation has been enhanced by recent studies with an emphasis on the special characteristics of Hellenistic poets as scholarly heirs of a long tradition, writing at a unique time in history. I don't see it really too much there, but I'll not go into it too much. But that was always the story I knew. That was that they hated it, and off he went. But hence roads. But whether it's true or not, I don't know. Must look into it. But the Argonautica does not read like the Iliad or the Odyssey, these epic poems, and dactylic hexameter at all. It's a great read. Very, very enjoyable book. Great story. Oh dear. And you can get the endings to the Argonautica, if you like, through Greek drama and so on. Anyway, I was going to quickly jump in with that, folks. Right, so Paul Leto has said, do I follow the Atreides mystique? Do the religious thing, all of that kind of thing. Do I live for my subjects and die for them, or do I choose another course, one which would permit me to live thousands of years? Now, I was saying that if I had given this chapter a title, I'll probably fix the title card. I would call it The Unchild and the Unthinkable. And the unthinkable is longevity here. Let's just go. So he says, permit me to live thousands of years. Jessica recoiled involuntarily. These words, spoken so easily, touched on a subject the Bene Gesserits made almost unthinkable. Many Reverend Mothers could choose that course or try it. The manipulation of internal chemistry was available to initiates of the sisterhood. But if one did it, sooner or later, all would try it. There could be no concealing such an accumulation of ageless women. They know for a certainty that this course would lead them to destruction. Short-lived humanity would turn upon them. No, it was unthinkable. So this is another one of the Bene Gesserit's little foibles. Is what we're basically told, that they can have longevity, they can adjust their bodies and live long times and look gorgeous and young all the time. But people would, if one did it, they'd all do it, I suppose, is what we're being told here, so they don't do it. And that short-lived humanity would turn upon them. So I think we're talking about real longevity as opposed to this, what seems to be a pseudo longevity provided by melange. Because we've noted that nobody who seems to take melange has lived a particularly long time by modern standards. Maybe a little bit longer, but not so as much as to be taking a drug that would be fatal if you withdrew from it. If you took it all the time, and I'm assuming if you do that, you would take it all the time to maintain your youth. So this is a secret of youth, if you like, longevity, that the Bene Gesserit can do this, no problem, but they don't. If one did it, they'd all do it. And we have a little bit of a clue. We're going to jump back to it in a wee minute here. But this is like almost, this is unthinkable. Not quite abomination, but we don't do this kind of thing. But that's in response to him living thousands of years, as he said. I don't like the trend of your thoughts, she said. You don't understand my thoughts, he said. Gani and I, he shook his head. Alia had it in her grasp and threw it away. I'm kind of wondering what's he talking about here. But it is actually what he's going to do, I think. And Jessica says, are you sure of that? I've already sent word to the sisterhood that Alia practices the unthinkable. That's not that she's an abomination, but she's practicing the unthinkable. What is that? The unthinkable is what we've just talked about, longevity. I've written here, look, all right, let me just finish that. Alia practices the unthinkable. Look at her. She's not aged a day since I last... ... Now, I don't know about you, but if the last time Jessica saw Alia was when she left Arrakis just after the Arrakis affair, then the last time she saw her daughter was at the age of 3 or 4. Which doesn't make sense. She hasn't aged a day. She's not aged a day since last ice. It's cut off, by the way. But if that's what it was she was going to say, this is the first time that she's been back on the planet since she's left. We're not too sure at which point she's left, but it's it's prior to the events of Dune Messiah. Pardon me. Anyway, my wee note here. The Unthinkable's longevity. See chapter 5, note 11, Alia and Erlan. So back we go. Let's see, chapter 5. Let's see, sorry, bear with me a wee second. I'm going to find the previous chapter before we get to that's 6. Right, there we go. There we go. So this is way back to Jessica's arrival on Iraq, excuse me. I don't know. Fizzy lemonade seems to make my throat wild tickling. I should just stick to water, shouldn't I? Jessica recognizes Stilgar's craggy features. God forfend, there stood the Princess Irulan, hiding her savagery in that seductive body, with its cap of golden hair exposed by a breeze. Here's the bit I wanted to point out. Irulan seemed not to have aged a day. It was an affront. Excuse me. And we have the same thing with Alia. But it's Irulan she mentions here. There at that point of the wedge was Alia, her features impudently youthful, her eyes staring upward into the hatchway's shadows. Excuse me. Pardon me. So there we have it. Remember we went back when we were looking at that chapter. I thought, oh, is this just an older woman being a bit jealous of the youthful looks of these two women? Seems not. But the question is Irulan doing that as well? You know, based on what we're told there, not aged today, neither of them. Pardon me. Youth, you know, and it's an affront. Now we know why. The suspicion that Alia is using this practice of the sisterhood, a thing we've not really known about before. We know all about they can manipulate their internal chemistry and, you know, the whole pranabindu, nerve and muscle and fiber and all of this stuff, but this is a new one. And I don't know. If everybody looked at all these gorgeous women as being youthful and beautiful all the time, that would drive the entire universe to wipe them out. I'm not too sure it would. But I think it would require other people to want to know the secret of what they did. But this isn't really what leads. Oh, by the way, that's the proof. I've written above this, the proof that Jessica is back with the Bene Gesserit and more. So Leto says, oh, that. He dismissed he dismissed Bene Gesserit body balance with a wave of his hand. I'm speaking of something else, a perfection of being far beyond anything humans have ever before achieved. There's that hyperbole again. Jessica remains silent, aghast at how easily he'd lifted her disclosure from her. You know, so she's manipulated. He's manipulating her, and she's not happy about how easy he's doing it. He'd known surely that such a message represented a death sentence on Alia, and no matter how he changed the words, he could only be talking about committing the same offense. Didn't he know the peril of his words? Let me just death sentence there. Highlight that in big red. There we go. So Jessica's report to the Bene Gesserit, she's admitting that this is a death sentence to her child, but are they going to carry it out? I suppose this is where we're going to go with this. Is she going to do it? Who's going to kill her? And that if that's the case, you know, I've already sent word to the sisterhood that Alia practices the unthinkable. He'd know surely that such a message represented a death sentence on Alia. But she sent it. You know, that's her basically signing the death warrant of her own daughter. Didn't he know the peril of his own words? He's saying, I'm going to do the same thing. And I'm going to go for longevity, if you like. And again, I suppose that the Bene Gesserit are going to have a problem with this. But I'm going to mention something, is that the Bene Gesserit take an awful lot upon themselves, as a comment that Paul made about them. So Jessica says, you must explain, she said, finally. How? He asked. Unless you understand that time isn't what it appears. I can't even begin to explain. My father suspected it. He stood at the edge of realization but fell back. Now it's up to Gani and me. I insist that you explain, Jessica said, and she fingered the poisoned needle she held beneath a fold of her robe. It was the Gom Jabbar, so deadly that the slightest prick of it killed in seconds. And she thought, they warned me I might need to use it. The thought sent the muscles of her arm trembling in waves, and she was thankful for the concealing robe. So again, we have that she's prepared to kill her grandson at a Bene Gesserit manipulation. If she's been manipulated with curiosity, fear, responsibility, guilt, oh, and you might need this deadly weapon to kill your grandson, and that's just a wee bit. And I think it's they warned me I might need to use it. So she's thinking that she's in danger here. Two facts we've got here. Very well, he sighed. First, as to time, there is no difference between 10,000 years and 1 year. No difference between 100,000 years and a heartbeat. No difference. This is the first fact about time. And the second fact, the entire universe with all of its time is within me. Wow, that's pretty impressive. I went with the first one, no, and the second one for the story. There is a difference between 10,000 years and 1 year. There is a difference between 100,000 years and a heartbeat. Sorry, Frank, but that's the case. But in relation to our story, I'm very happy. I know about suspension of disbelief. In relation to this, it's fine, isn't it? But we understand that it's that idea of prescience and how much time do you have compared to eternity? Does that make sense? You could, and it's the same with the other memory. How long can you explore all these memories when you've only got a finite life yourself to do so? So if you're going to live to 90 years of age, you'll have 90 years of experiencing either prescience or the other memory, if you like, at the maximum. But you can't do it. That's it. It's not eternity, and anything is a mote, isn't it? Really, compared to eternity. But there's no difference between time and all. The entire universe with all of its time is within me. I kind of just went with Douglas Adams a wee bit just for a bit of a giggle there. Lunchtime is time is an illusion. Lunchtime doubly so. Maybe he's just consumed lunchtime. Sorry, I'm being whimsical, folks. But yeah, and it's a pretty impressive little statement to make, isn't it? The entire universe with all of its time is within me. It's very philosophical in a sense, but I don't think the God Emperor. Sorry, he's not that yet, is he? Leto II is being like that. I don't know, but you could say that in some ways we're all the universe and all of that sort of stuff, if you like, philosophically, whimsically, maybe. I don't know. Julian said the fact that Alia and Jessica share identities and are so antagonistic says a lot about them both. Yeah, and this is a pretty antagonistic situation as well, isn't it? Dune has always balanced lofty dialogue which hides potential violence. It suggests that Leto can experience a whole century's worth of time in an evening. It condenses and widens within and without Leto. And yeah, that's the wee bit that we go forward, we come back, this kind of thing. We're about to get there, aren't we? What nonsense is this? She demanded. Back to that sort of condescending tone. Nonsense. Does it sound like he's talking nonsense? If somebody just said that to me, I'd be very curious about what they wanted to discuss, and I wouldn't consider it nonsense. I'd be going, wow, that's pretty deep. Go on. Let me hear what you think. I wouldn't go, that's a load of hoo-ha. Not at least until I've had a bit of an explanation, but it's an interesting concept. And I'm someone who's experienced time slow down. So I've had that. I've been in a very, very bad car crash where the entire car was crushed and I got out of it without a scratch. And I was able to move as it crumpled, and I just saw it all happening slowly. And then again with my dad actually at the hospital when I saved his life, I had to react and everything slowed down. But it's a perception thing, isn't it? And I don't know what it is. Some people have talked to me about it and asked me about it, and I that's all I can say about it, is that it happened and that there were severe physical consequences for both happened was I ended up throwing up for about a it's just whatever, I don't know, just pure acid and and after my dad, I just couldn't stop shaking for 2 days when I saved his life. I was just hyper. Same with the car crash. Just couldn't stop. But I got out of that car crash because I was able to move and avoid everything somehow. But the bit that I ended up in was like this, and that was all that was left of my car. The whole thing had been crushed. I got hit at 60 mile an hour and by a car right into the side. And then it pushed me and I nearly got crushed on the other side by a wall. And how I got out of that is because of that. But yeah, time can seem, slow. Sometimes it can go quick. Sometimes, I don't know, it's an interesting thing, isn't it? But some people would argue it doesn't even really exist. Was it Einstein said time is what you read on a watch? What's the other one? The devil's discussion on time from Old Harry's game. Well, he asks the professor, "What is time?" And the answer he gets is, "Well, time is what stops everything from happening all at once," which is an interesting way of putting it. I like your comment, Julian, about the violence. That's a very smart way of putting it. It's balanced, lofty dialogue which hides potential violence. Yeah. Suggests that Leto can experience a whole century's worth of time in an evening. It condenses and widens within Leto. Yeah. Yeah, what nonsense is this? You see, you don't understand. I will try to explain in another way then. He raised his hand to illustrate, moving as he spoke. I put in there that needs a comma between illustrate and moving. I don't have one in my copy. We go forward, we come back. It's a bit vague, isn't it? These words explain nothing. Which is true in a way. That is correct, he said. You're right. There are things which words cannot explain. Very true. Well, there's some, I wouldn't say it cannot explain. I would say that there are things that words. Oh, sometimes they do no good. Does that make sense? Sometimes words are useless. But as the word things which cannot explain, I'd have a go. And if you can't explain something, have another go. Keep trying. That kind of thing. You must experience them without words, but you're not prepared for such. Sorry, for such a venture. Just as when you look at me, you do not see me. I've written something here and I can't make it out. It's my bad hand. Literal metaphor. No, hang on, something else. Maybe I'm not too sure. So Jessica says, but I'm looking directly at you. Of course I see you. So she's taking what he says like literally, in a sense, isn't she? She glared at him. Well, maybe not. His words reflected knowledge of the Zen Sunni Codex, as she'd been taught it in the Bene Gesserit schools. Play of words to confuse one's understanding of philosophy. No, I don't actually think that. I don't know when I'm thinking about that playing on words to confuse people is the intent of any philosopher. If you see what I mean. Julian said empiricism is the constant conversation. June, what experience is happens to be a very difficult conversation for academics. Yes. Very Zen attitude towards words. I agree. Yeah. I love words. Absolutely adore them. And that's part of why I do what I do with this. Julian, is if I find something, there's a word. Oh, wonder what that is. Where does that? But not only what does it mean, where does it come from? How did it form? How has the word changed over the years? This kind of thing. And words do have power. As do thoughts. But yeah, he's being a bit vague deliberately. So, but I think there's a reason for it. Some things occur beyond your control, he said. And I was wondering, does he mean personal control there or Bene Gesserit control? How does that explain this perfection, which is so far beyond human experience? Again, there's a level of condescension there. That this perfection. He nodded. If one delays old age or death by the use of melange, or by that learned adjustment of fleshly balance which you Bene Gesserit so rightly fear, such a delay invokes only an illusion of control. Whether one walks rapidly through the siege or slowly, one traverses the siege, and that passage of time is experienced internally. I wrote, as much as that's the truth, others can also see you walking through that siege and experience their passage of time, your passage of time as well. So, although not be first hand, if you like. Why do you bandy words this way? I cut my wisdom teeth on such I cut my wisdom teeth on such nonsense long before even your father was born. I've only just got I've got 5 of my wisdom teeth out, and I've got another one coming through, but I'm 51. But Leto said, "This is quite funny. I like this, but only the teeth grew." Words. You're very close. Ha! And I just, what have I written next? This deliberate provocation, I think, by Leto. Being vague, he's provoking something within her that she can't quite get to. And here it comes, and this is the little sidestep. It's grandmother. Yes. He held his silence for a long space. Then, there's no You see, you can still respond as yourself. He smiled at her. But you cannot see past the shadows. I am here. Now, that's a really nice little moment, I think. And there's all this back and forth. And Leto is doing this for a reason. He's teaching he wants to teach his grandmother a lesson, and he's doing so, though she doesn't really know it. With words, he's confusing the issue. But then he goes, so we talked about the shift in tone and put one thing in, then throw in another for shock value. But here's the opposite. You've got the shock value, and then just it's just like he goes, Granny. If you're like, grandmother. Yes. And it gets her as grandmother, not the Lady Jessica, not a Reverend, not a Bene Gesserit or anything like that. She's, for want of a better word, it's like saying granny. That's the way I interpret this. Yes. And he goes, you see, you can be yourself. You're my grandmother. That's what I got from that. But you cannot see past the shadows. I am here. Stop seeing all this darkness. Look at me. This is what I am. And again, he smiled. My father came very near to this. When he lived, he lived. But when he died, he failed to die. He's not dead. What are you saying? Show me his body. That's habeas corpus, isn't it? Show me the body. Without a body, I got nothing. Do you think this preacher? Possibly. But even so, that is not his body. And I took from that, yes, the preacher might be Paul, but it's still not a dead body, is it? The implication, I suppose, if Paul's still alive and Paul's still emperor, it's as simple as that. He's still Duke of Arrakis, if you like, but he is the emperor. Oh, he's not Duke of Arrakis anymore, is he? He's the emperor, which means Leto cannot be, and Alia has no need to be a regent, I suppose. But for Leto to move forward, he's got to have his father's body. I think we'll get to that. I remember that much in the book, and the fact that as long as there's a mystery around it, it's this suggest, he could come again. He could be, like the once. And one of the characters that Paul Atreides is based on is King Arthur, who is the once and future king, who will come again one day. This kind of thing. If there's no body, if there's some sort of mystery around it, that sort of stuff. It's a common thing, by the way, with certain mythological and historical kings, that they'll come again one day when their country needs them the most. And that's part of the Arthur myth, that one day Arthur will return when Britain needs him. Britain will never have need of a 6th century warlord again. I think there's even stuff like Charlemagne might do that as well. I think recently somebody, there's a sword belonging. The name of Charlemagne's sword is Durandal, but there's a sword stuck in the mountain. It's meant to be his sword, famously, and somebody stole it recently, I believe, which is interesting. Yeah, must have a wee look into that story. I heard about its theft. I wonder if they found it. But it's a there's a myth attached with that sword in the cliff of wherever it's buried, or it was stuck in a sort of cliffside, if you like. Let me just have a wee quick look at that. Durandal. Oh no, well, it's the Sword of Roland. Sorry, I'm getting mixed up. Roland's the guy that leads the Song of Roland is kind of about this legendary rear guard action of Charlemagne's paladins, isn't it? Really. So it's Durandal's the Song of Roland. Is that the one I'm thinking on, or is it actually the sword of? The sword is capable of cutting through giant boulders with a single strike and was indestructible. There it is, Durandal. There we go. It's in a place called Rocamadour, France. If anybody's interested. If you have a look at Durandal, it's the Sword of Roland. Sorry, not Charlemagne. There you go. That's where it is, Rocamadour. If you go to Wikipedia, you'll actually see a picture of the sword in the cliff, pretty much attached to a chain. But I think I heard about this recently. Somebody's nicked it. There you go, just at the bottom. Legend holds that instead of dying with Durandal hidden under his body, Roland called on the Archangel Michael for assistance and was able to throw the sword several hundred kilometers across the border into France, where it came to rest in Rocamadour. There it was deposited in the Chapel of Mary, but was stolen by Henry the Young King in 1183. Successive replicas have been stolen. Most recently, a sword fashioned from sheet metal was embedded in the cleft in the cliff wall, secured with a chain. That sword was reported stolen in June 2024. So it's not the original sword. There you go. It's a supposed replica or something like that. I did a wee poem called Swords and mentioned it in there. God, I haven't read the Song of Roland in years. Got a copy. I must have a wee nosy at that again. That's worth a read if anybody doesn't know it. Then it always struck me as the platonic ideal teacher to lead from the cave you cannot see past the shadows. The allegory of the cave, yeah. Yeah. It's still really interesting, Julian, to have looking at him here as a kid. And like to talk about these. We've talked a few times about ridiculously dangerous children or babies. Particularly, I have a thing. I love dangerous babies in literature and comics and stuff. Quite a few of them that I'm aware of. But these again, it's sometimes how you picture this going on in your head. It's sometimes easy to forget this is a 9-year-old talking, which would be, if the only time he's been filmed, I suppose it was James McAvoy, wasn't it? Who was a really good Leto, by the way, in the Children of Dune miniseries, but he's much, much older. Him and Ganymer are sort of shown as being like about 16, 17, really, than 9. Yeah. Where do we get to? Right, grandmother, yes. You can still respond as yourself, but you cannot see past the shadows. I am here. Again, he smiled. My father came very near to this. When he lived, but when he died, he failed to die. What are you saying? Show me his body. Do you think the preacher? I've read this again, sorry, just catch up. But even so, that is not his body. You've explained nothing, just as I warned you. Then why? You asked, says Leto. You had to be shown. Now let us return to Alia and her plan for abduction and Cuff. Are you planning the unthinkable? She demanded, holding the poisonous gom jabbar at the ready beneath her robe. Are you planning to live for thousands of years? Yes. And if so, that is a problem for the Bene Gesserit, and it's a suggestion that she might just kill him here for that. Holding the poisonous gom jabbar at the ready beneath her robes, Leto asks her this. Will you be her executioner? He asked, his voice deceptively mild. He pointed a finger at the hand beneath the robe. Do you think she'll permit you to use that? Or do you think I'll let you use it? And Jessica found that she could not swallow. So he's well aware of the gom jabbar. It's a good question. Is she a bit of a hypocrite here? Has she outsourced the killing of Ali? Are you prepared to be her executioner? She's basically signed her death warrant, if you like, with her report desert. But what does that mean? And I often thought that as much as they have, that if one Benny Gesserit ever turned up in a royal house and tried to, that immediately all, that they would get on to it and go, what's this? You turning up at our house with poison? And are you assassins or something? I don't think we could get away with it for that long. And it seems to be that running about with the gum jabbar is a thing they do. Not testing people, especially if we believe that this breeding program's been going on for thousands of years. But will you be her executioner? He asked, voice deceptively mild. Do you think she'll permit you to use that, or do you think I'll let you use it? She found she could not swallow. That's overt threat there. But she's being threatening, isn't she? And she thinks she's got her weapon concealed. That's what Julian was saying about the violence hidden within the language, In answer to your question, he said, I do not plan the unthinkable. I am not that stupid, but I am shocked at you. You dare judge Alia. Of course she's broken the precious Bene Gesserit commandment. What did you expect? You ran out on her, left her as queen here in all but name, all of that power. So you ran back to Caladan to nurse your wounds in Gurney's arms. Good enough, but who are you to judge Alia? You bailed on your daughter. Who are you to say boo about her? Pretty much, and it's a good question, really. To be honest, it's interesting because if you have a good look at Dune, one of the things I think that Denis Villeneuve's film got really badly wrong is the portrayal of Leto II. This kind of idea that he's a good father. He's not. He's an absentee father. He's a bit of a druggie. He's a mass murderer. He's in many ways exactly like the Baron. But Paul doesn't really. If you actually check, it's always all these little comments in the epigraphs about, what wasn't he great and all this stuff. But if you actually pay attention to the story, it's always like kind of Paul's wondering where his dad is, or he's not there. And it's interesting that with the other Atreides child, we get the same thing. Absentee mother for Alia. She clears off, goes back to Caladan. Could have took her daughter with her, But again, Alia is, as much as you look at Alia as a child, she's not a child back then either. Yeah. But she doesn't like this at all and says, I tell you, I will not this. And he cuts her off and he goes, oh, shut up. And initially I wrote, ouch, telling his granny to shut up. But this is voice here. He's had enough. He's controlling her. He looked away from her in disgust. But his words had been uttered in that special Bene Gesserit way, the controlling voice. It silenced her as though a hand had been clapped over her mouth. And she thought, who'd know how to hit me with voice better than this one? It was a mitigating argument which eased her wounded feelings. As many times as she'd used voice on others, she never expected to be susceptible to it. Not ever again. Not since the school days when... And I've written next this that the beginning of Dune, the Denis Villeneuve's Dune, must be nonsense. It starts off with Paul taking control of his mother with voice, and he's only a practitioner. He's learning, yet she's totally susceptible to the voice in Dune, in Denis Villeneuve's Dune. Just to be comment I made there. He turned back to her. I'm sorry. I just happen to know how blindly you can be expected to react when... Blindly? Me? She was more outraged by this than she'd been by the use of voice against her. You, he said, blindly. If you've any honesty left in you at all, you'll recognize your own reactions. I call your name and you say yes. I silence your tongue. I invoke all your Bene Gesserit myths. Look inward the way you were taught. That at least is something you can do for your... How dare you? What do you know of... Her voice trailed off. Of course he knew. Look inward, I say. His voice was imperious. Voice again. Again, his voice enthralled her, enslaved her. She found her senses stilled, felt a quickening of breath. Just beyond awareness lurked a pounding heart, the panting of. Abruptly, she realized that the quickened breath, the pounding heart were not latent, not held at bay by her Bene Gesserit control, eyes widening in shocked awareness. She felt her own flesh obeying other commands. Slowly, she recovered her poise, but the realization remained. This unchild had been playing her like a fine instrument throughout their interview. Now you know how profoundly you were conditioned by your precious Bene Gesserits, he said. And that's the goal here, I think, for Leto, is to pray that. I think the evidence within this chapter is that yes, she's back with the BG, the Bene Gesserit, but there's compulsions and conditioning within Jessica that she is unaware of, and they're possibly in relation to breeding and stuff like this, But to deliver her own child to the Bene Gesserit, all of this, and it's a moment of realization for her. There was something I should have written it down here, but I'm trying to remember where it was. Maybe it's here actually, but we talk about rebirths within Dune, and this is a rebirth in a sense, I think, for the Lady Jessica as well. But yeah, obeying other commands. This is the Bene Gesserit sowing things within their own, I suppose. Now you know how profoundly conditioned by your precious Bene Gesserits. That nearly ended up as degenerates there, didn't it? And she could only nod. Her belief in words lay shattered. Leto had forced her to look her physical universe squarely in the face, and she'd come away shaken, her mind running with a new awareness. There we go. Show me his body. He'd shown her her own body, as though it were newborn. There we go. I was actually thought that word was a wee bit back there. It is. It's a kind of we'll kind of get Jessica reborn out of this, I suppose, in a sense. You'll show her own body as though she were newborn, not since her earliest schooling days on Wallach, not since those terrifying days before the Duke's buyers came for her. Not since then had she felt such trembling uncertainty about her next moments. What's been done to me, this kind of thing. There we go. Now, Leto says, you will allow yourself to be abducted, Leto said. But I'm not asking for a discussion on this point, he said. You will allow it. Think of this as a command from your Duke. You'll see the purpose when it's done. You're going to confront a very interesting student. Oh, mystery. Leto stood, nodded. He said, some actions have an end, but no beginning. Some begin, but do not end. It all depends on whether the observer is standing. I kind of written next to that, no, I don't believe that myself. But I get what he's kind of trying to say. Again, another confusing metaphor, if you like. But turning, he left her chambers. So you're doing it whether you like it or not. Gives her this little speech about actions and then leaves without giving her a chance to respond. In the second anteroom, so turning, he left her chambers. In the second anteroom, Leto met Ganima hurrying into the private quarters. She stopped as she saw him and said, Alia is busy with the convocation of the faith. She looked a question at the passage which led to Jessica's quarters. It worked, Leto said. There we go. And that's chapter 15, folks. Oh, goodness gracious. They've been heavy chapters the last few in terms of how we work through the book. I'm looking forward to a couple of shorter ones, and I think the next one is a bit more manageable for me in terms of trying to get it done over the week. Here we go. Yeah, about 8 or 10. So there we go. Let me just catch up with your comments there, folks. Just before we get wrapped up, how are we doing? 3 hours and 20 tonight, not too bad. Oh, James McAvoy was great. Yes, he was. The most book-accurate adaptation, I agree. Yeah, I realize I've neglected the stage of who Leto is. I got to be focused on God Emperor. He is his own huge arc before he's gone there. Yeah, it's. I think really this is the genesis of the. You can consider this book his genesis, if you like, and but where Leto the second again. If can you imagine if you had an actor like McAvoy who was 9, a really good child actor doing this, and he was great, and he was pretty youthful back then as well. But they sure as hell didn't look like they were 9 years of age. But probably the best that they could do. In fact, actually, I would say that Alia in the Dune miniseries looked about 9 or 10 instead of 3 or 4. But it's probably extremely difficult to cast a 3 or 4 year old. Hmm. But no, he was good. I realize, it is a thing because you get the God Emperor. It's almost a different person in a sense, isn't it? But he's here. This is his personality. Telling us actually is that whenever he's done with all the other memories, that he'll be someone else. But he won't be possessed. But it's if we know the good sort of moments of God Emperor and stuff, we really can see his genesis here, and he's already interesting. He's a fascinating character, as is Ganima. Part of me always thinks it's a bit sad about how Ganima is just sort of left aside at the end of this book, if you like. Because at the start, I actually find Ganima more interesting, the more forceful of the two twins. But and again, his imperious voice and stuff like that. There's this is going to be the God Emperor one day. And it's interesting because we are looking at it's an interesting way if you looked at it looking back. Once upon a time there'll be this God Emperor, but once upon a time he was a 9-year-old boy, and look at the adventures that he's having and the dangers and so on and so forth. Leofort's propaganda is mad. Love the good joke is that's what they do the best. That's the thing. Almost everything in the first third of the book, the epigraphs of Dune, propaganda. But it's interesting. My favorite reveal of Leto the First is when they're actually discussing Jessica's parentage in Dune, because they're wondering, is Jessica the traitor? This is the plan that the Harkonnens have sunk in to the House of Trees, make them suspect Jessica and this kind of thing. But there's a point where Leto is discussing this with Thufir, and they just kind of have, do you think we killed her parents? It's possible we've killed lots of people. it's that's the conversation they have. You think as at some point in the past I might have murdered my wife's father or mother? And it's a bizarre little statement there. But no, Leto's actions speak for himself. I think Leto is the other side of the barn. He's a equally villainous, but it's a matter of your point of view, isn't it? Really. But yes, love the good Duke. All of those and the things that he always loved in the lands. We've only got, again, it's propaganda. Why would they love him? The interesting thing is we never really get to see the Landsrad operate in any shape or form. Bringing up my favorite quote from the whole series, it simple encompasses Frank's whole message: make no heroes. Satori moments for Jessica. Yeah, Frank is great at getting across the message that we shouldn't seek gurus. Yeah. And I suppose even with the whole hero thing is, even when you get a good hero, like a mess things up. But one of the things I like, Julian, is there's a wee bit of work on this in my own PhD, is having a good look at what is a hero. It depends on what type of hero we look at, but in the classical context and so on. But more often not within mythology and epics and sagas, that the hero's a bridge between two worlds, if you like. The hero's fundamentally associated with one thing, and that one thing is death. I must have there's a couple of interesting books in the bibliography of my PhD. I must have a nosy, but couple of good things. I don't own the books anymore, but I used them for the PhD, researching heroes and stuff like that. But yes, indeed, we shouldn't seek gurus. It's the thing is that he's also really good at creating such admirable heroes in a way. They're not that hateful. We support them all the way, but they're extremely worrying. The death toll of both Paul and Leto II, and probably Leto I, is outrageous. beyond outrageous. It's actually, we don't have that many people on this earth, so we can't fathom how many people really that they've killed. But it's in worlds of people, you know. Mm. But it's an goodness gracious, it's been a bit of a way today. Pardon me, really not been too well lately, and just trying to sort of get better, which I'm really there and get on with this stuff. So we've got another chapter to get done. As always, we'll keep putting one foot in front of the other and keep going. That's kind of the way I do things. So there we go. I'll just get ready to wrap up, folks, actually, because I'm absolutely shattered. And 9 o'clock. I maybe wonder if anybody's catching the end of this program. Would you think 9 o'clock would be a better time? I notice we're losing some people. They're just time to go to bed, etc. Chaya's a couple of hours ahead of us. Some people are behind us. That kind of thing. Excuse me 1 wee second. Just mute this. Apologies, sorry about that. But yeah, I think the Tuesday, going with Tuesdays, I should be able to get the work done on time each week. I think it should be easier. As I said, I'll be losing a couple of students on a Tuesday after next week. I'll still have a student on a Tuesday, but it means I'll have that day freed up, which means if I'm really stuck behind, I can actually get up on a Tuesday morning and pile through it and have it ready for Tuesday night. But no, it takes me about 3 days to get these notes and a kind of script together. So it's just a bit of a cumbersome way of doing things, but it also helps a lot in terms of finding stuff out and backtracking and all of that. These notes are worth their weight in gold, I think, to me anyway. I've no idea what to do with them after this. But this is our 7th book. We're about to finish it soon. A couple more chapters in this book will be done, and we'll have to go to a volume 2 of this, which will bring it to we've got 6, 7. It'll be 8 notebooks, probably 9, I think, to finish Children of Dune. Let me see. We're only at page 105, so let's say I'll get another maybe 20 pages out of that. What's the total length? That's one notebook for 120, 43. Yeah, no, actually, probably 4 notebooks for this book, to be honest with you. But there we go. Well, listen, folks, it's late, and I'm sure you are all tired. Possibly some of you are out in bits of different parts of the world, a few hours behind and stuff like that, so maybe it's not that late at all. But I'll just say thank you very much, as always, everybody, for joining me tonight. Some great comments from everyone there tonight. Julian, thank you so much. Chaya, just Connor, a whole lot of you. Don't want to leave anybody out, but just some of the stuff that we've had tonight's been brilliant, and just thank you so much. And just has helped me a wee bit. Sometimes I don't always catch everything, and one of the things that we like to point out is that when we study literature, everybody's got a different opinion about a book. Everyone looks at it differently, So always great to hear those comments and questions, and I don't always have the answers, but some of you guys do, which is brilliant, and it really just makes my day when things like that happen. Especially when I get little things like characters' names not even spelt right in the book, and I'm looking these names up, trying to figure out what they mean. Is there a reference here? Because usually there is, and that could be that was pretty annoying to be. To be honest with you, to find out that's not. It only occurred to me once I looked at the encyclopedia that there's a different name for this character in the encyclopedia than in my book. My book is probably wrong, and it is. So that can be a wee bit frustrating sometimes. Julian said, "No rush on emailing me back. I'm doing doctoral applications this whole month and into December night, doc." No worries, Julian. I'll have to get a wee chat with you. I was just going to say chuck you email, but I literally have a stack of emails, and I've been sending this to everyone. But I will. I need a day to get at it, and just health. I have my own work to do, just to sort of earn a crust and stuff like that. And just, as we're about to hit one of the big exams in a week's time, and then I'll have a whole bunch more of them at the end of the set, just in January and so on. So it tends to be a wee bit of a busy time for me, and a certain amount of work catches up and that. So it's just I'm trying to find a wee balance here. And I hope you guys don't mind too much the way it bounces around a bit. At the end of the day, all of these videos, these live broadcasts are going up on the playlists. So if you miss them or it's too late or anything like that, or you just don't catch me, they're there, you know. And I know it's a wee bit anal this stuff, but it's I do love picking something apart like this. It's in my nature. Um, and to be honest with you, I think it's proved invaluable in terms of how I've learned so much about the Dune books this time round. And I've got a PhD in the damn thing, and I thought I knew loads of stuff, but again, focusing on certain things, you leave stuff out. It's been time, and I'm really enjoying these books and finding all sorts of little things and within them. And especially with my love of mythology and language and stuff like that, I'm finding this a delight. I hope it's not too boring for everybody. But we do read the whole chapter each time as well. So it's as much as we stop and do little diversos and run about and jump about different topics and stuff, you can read the whole chapter along with me here as we do each episode. You know, so hopefully it's not too bad, folks. Thank you very much, Julian. I'm going to be in touch real soon. Just I will grab a day, but it's just I'm almost scared of my email inbox. I just don't want to look at it at the moment. Because I just know it'll need a whole day, and I'm just trying to find the time. So it's not just yourself, Julian. There's a few other people. I got big emails from X said, is that it? X-Ray Zulu. There's lots of stuff to look at. I often reply to him, but I just haven't got around to it. So if you're listening, X-Ray Zulu out there, apologies, and I will get in touch as soon as I can. So there we go, folks. It's 1:33. We've got freezing fog here. I'm going to say good night, or good morning, even. So all of you out there, look after yourselves. Take care. Be safe in this strange and crazy world, and hopefully we'll see you again next time, Tuesday at 10 p.m. GMT, Greenwich Mean Time. And if anybody wants to drop any wee quick comments to me, if you think 9 p.m. might be a better time, etc., I might consider that. It's just it allows me to get the work done, get some food, and I normally finish working here at 8 p.m. at night, and then I grab a bite and I'm on here for 10, you know. So there we go. That's enough explanations. I'll just say goodnight. I'm so long-winded, folks. Have a good one. Look after yourselves, and I'll see you real soon. Tuesday at 10 for the next chapter of Children of Dune. All the very best. Take care. Bye-bye. Do 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 ba 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 ba.